off, and then we can just chat until
All right.
man gets started.
Yeah,
So
no,
let me
no,
start.
we were both live, so go ahead and
Like,
introduce it. So
Okay,
this is
okay.
honestly,
Hang on, Justin. Hang on a
sorry.
second. Wait. Okay, hang on a
Yeah,
second.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. No worries. And we're live. How's everyone doing today? So there's a bit of an awkward start off of this. So yeah.
Oh my fucking god! I tried for like
wait,
five
wait.
fucking
Well,
minutes.
hold
to
on
get
a
my
second.
point
Wait a minute.
across.
oh, hold on.
Wait.
It's
Who is your fucking god? Your fucking god, right? That.
I don't have
Oh
a
my
fucking god.
fucking. You don't.
It's a term of phrase.
So it's a phrase. So you're fucking nothing. But okay. Yeah.
I'm fucking outraged,
Okay, maybe we
and
should.
I'm trying real hard not to, just fucking scream at the
Look,
top of my lungs.
I lowered your volume so so it wouldn't turn into a fucking chaos show with
How
people
about
like
you get
five
the
different
So,
people
okay.
shut the
at same
fuck
time.
up and like actually let me finish my point. I was making a point directly.
Because you interrupted someone else to make your point.
interrupted.
You interrupted someone else
I
to
did
make your
not
point, and
interrupt.
then you're
I was
saying,
laughing.
"Oh, you guys didn't let me finish."
Oh
Like,
my god!
It's
Okay, so
Go-
okay, so
all right. So JP was the one who had the floor.
No, I'm having the floor right now. God damn it!
I had the floor first.
Yeah.
JP had the floor. You interrupted
I
him.
was directly
Interrupted.
let
I was-
PM have the
I was
floor.
directly addressing Humane's point. Okay.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense because like we haven't
Oh my
streamed.
god! Shut up! Shut up!
Okay, but
Shut
like
the
you
fuck
realize
up.
that
Shut the
realize
fuck up!
that
Shut the.
we're gonna have a
Okay, lay the course. Okay, explain the situation before proceeding. Well, since
Alright,
Ham won't let anybody else talk, explain what happened and then your rebuttal.
Okay. Humane made the was talking about natural rights. I disagree that natural rights are inherent and self-evident. The only rights that exist are the rights you fight for and enforce yourself. Okay. If you allow the government to take away your right to privacy, which has happened in America, it no longer exists, and you have to fight for it again. You have to fight for it back. And Humane made the straw man that's saying that if a woman is raped, she no longer has the right to not be raped because she didn't fight hard enough for it. That's complete.
Okay, I have to say something.
How is that not the same?
It's completely different. You implied that she fought.
You never let me.
no,
finish
like
my
Okay.
point.
Okay.
No offense, but that first thing you said is the dumbest thing I've ever heard said in my life.
it is done.
Okay.
What is
Okay,
dumb?
so let JP respond because he was
Okay,
trying to
sorry.
respond to this. All right, are you done, Ham? Can we
All
proceed
right,
with that?
let me
Yeah.
restart all over again, and everyone please be quiet.
Okay.
Now, our Constitution does have an amendment saying that a civilian cannot be compelled to quarter military personnel in their house. Now, I forget what the amendment is, but that has very rarely happened. Now, if someone knocks on my door and says, JPM, we're from the military, we need to stay at your house for the night, does that mean that I then have no right to say no because I didn't fight for it?
That is
That
true,
was-
and
that is true.
You're thinking of the
It's
Third
written in the
Amendment.
letter of the law.
Third Amendment, the Third Amendment of the Constitution.
Colton, like
And by the way, that amendment has been interpreted beforehand as to be a right to privacy because, that specific situation doesn't really happen.
Isn't there
Yeah.
other amendments?
So-
that apply, like,
So
before?
can I counter Ham's point? Okay.
Yes,
So he
go ahead.
said we have these rights that the government has eroded, and therefore we no longer have those rights. So how is that any different from a rape victim being raped because there are people who are fighting against the government's encroachment of our First Amendment rights and our right to privacy and things along those lines, and we aren't winning against the government. And you claim that means that we don't have the right to those we don't have a right to privacy because the government is currently invading our privacy and we didn't fight it and we didn't win that fight. So therefore, the people who gave in took away our rights and we no longer have them. That was That's the summation of your point. Am I misrepresenting it?
That long-winded response time kind of tells me something.
I do have a second point here. Is if the only rights we have are the rights we fight for, does that mean as long as I can overpower my enemy, I can get rights that I wouldn't otherwise have? Can I give myself with enough power? Can I give myself the right to murder people because hey, I've got a nuclear bomb. You guys don't want to fuck with me because I'll blow everything up. I now have the right to kill whoever I want. Otherwise, I set off this nuke and I win.
Yeah, like, okay. Here's my question. World War II, right? Okay, let's go with this argument here. If you want to go all the way with this argument, all right?
Yeah.
So are you saying that the Jews did not have the right to live because they didn't fight hard enough for it?
That would be if rights were based on your ability to fight.
Did they want to live?
I'm pretty sure.
I assume they did.
Sorry, Colton, I didn't mean to.
Most Jews in the Holocaust did not expect to be, led into a concentration camp to be just slaughtered.
I don't think anyone would have expected to be thrown in a concentration camp, and I don't think anyone would want to be in a concentration camp.
Yeah, because that's how, if you look at the history of it, that's how he did it.
Besides, they did kind of forfeit their right to life when they let all these atrocities occur. The oppression of Jews, the oppression of homosexuals and disabled, and all the other groups that the Germans could.
Fighting the Nazis, like the U.S.
They kind of did forfeit their right to life.
Because they could have fought and won against the entire government.
Actually,
did they actually?
A point I was trying to make was, do I have a right, even though I or my ancestors haven't had to fight for that right for over 100 years? Haven't
you heard of concentration camp riots? The effeminate degenerate says in the live chat, which that is pretty damn compelling to hear. But yeah, Jews were a tiny minority. They could not have been won against 40% of the Germans, she says in the chat. Could not have won against 40% of Germans, she types.
Okay.
So yeah, if you guys want to look at the live chat, I put a link to it in the Hangout. But yeah.
I know that it was a pretty exaggerated example, but you get the idea. It's just like, I know it was a straw man, but in this case, you see the point I was trying to make. It's just like...
Well,
yeah.
That's because the explanation for rights that Ham has presented creates these problems. The explanation that I was suggesting doesn't.
Whether you like it or not.
Ham.
You're right.
If the government doesn't respect your right to life, you don't have a right to life.
You don't.
You have to fight for it.
And that's why you fight with it, whatever weapon can defend yourself.
If the government takes away that right, it doesn't mean they don't have it. It means that you have it and that they violated it.
Yes.
Like, this is why I don't get when you two debate, because I'm just like sitting there. I'm like,
yeah.
Some of the time, some of the arguments are just so. I don't know how you come up with them.
So can I elaborate a little bit more? If I didn't have the right to life, if somebody killed me, there would be no repercussions for that person who killed me. There would be no trial, no murder trial, no punishment, no prison sentence. What we do when somebody violates a right, we enact judgment upon them based on the violation of that right. Now, if you don't have...
where murder is prohibited, where you do have a right to life.
Yes, and the same thing is if you have the right to privacy and the government is infringing upon our right to privacy, we should be able to take them to court because that is the enforcement of our right. However, we don't do that because, because the government has gotten to the point where it's no longer being bound by the people. It's no longer following the Constitution. It's no longer a government by the people for the people. It is a tyrant.
I think our problem here is his wording of it. I think what he's trying to say is that if they're taking away that right, you might as well not have it. It's like pretty much the same thing is what he's trying to get across. Like, he's not trying to say that we never had it, but what he's trying to say is if the government's taking it away, then
Well,
you
The-
essentially don't have you know what I mean. He's not.
I mean,
I kind of get it, but the nuance is important. I'll let Han go.
my point is, if you don't like actively, fight for your right, it effectively does not exist.
Yeah.
You know,
It's taken away from you. You no longer have it. That's what you're saying.
I mean, we allowed during the chaos of the 9/11 tax, we allowed the Patriot Act to get passed,
I know.
which destroyed our right to privacy.
I didn't allow it because
Yeah,
I didn't have any say-so in it.
Yeah.
Did you vote?
I
couldn't
voted
vote.
it. Yeah, I voted in 2000. What was that? Was 2000?
But they didn't have a
Let's see.
referendum for the Patriot Act.
No, the soonest I could vote was
Yeah.
2004, which
Yeah.
was after the Patriot Act.
Like Google's doing it right now. Like I said,
But you
Project
can still
Beacon
elect a representative
No.
who would repeal it.
the Patriot Act.
Ham,
The Patriot Act is what's allowing Google to develop the Project Maven thing they're doing right now. like,
Yeah. So the case is we do have these rights. The government are just infringing upon those rights. So there should be something we can do to punish the government for infringing upon those rights. However, the government is so powerful at the moment, we are unable to fight back, and they're continually gaining more and more power. So
And that's
we
why
could
they-
fight back, but it's a pointless fight because we would lose those fights.
yeah, and that's exactly
So-
why they want to keep the second, because
Yeah.
they want the right to defend themselves against the government.
Yes.
And the point I was trying to make is, do I still have a right not to have a soldier be quartered in my apartment, even though I and my ancestors have never had to fight for the right?
No, but if they force themselves in, then that right's not there anymore, is it?
No, well, so the thing with rights is you have to understand they are logically derived. You don't get them because the government chooses, because it's like saying I don't have a right to keep my property if somebody keeps stealing it. That doesn't make any sense logically.
But guess what?
That's
JP?
what you're saying when you're saying I don't have the right to privacy because the government keeps coming in and spying on me. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, right now, if the government were to come to your door, JPM, and say that these soldiers have to stay here, guess what? It's not technically peacetime, and it hasn't been since 9/11. So,
It doesn't specify as peacetime.
yeah, it does. But
let me check. Let me.
Really?
as far as I know, it does.
Let me check. I'll check it.
I'm
Let
not
me,
I was under the impression that was any time.
let me check. Third Amendment.
Yeah.
Because I know what it is, but I need to check the
I thought
verbatim amendment.
The effeminate degenerate. All right.
Yep, she typed something pretty interesting, telling us to look up something when it came to the analogy of. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce this part because I'm too white to do it. And Treblinka, I don't fucking know. Anyway, so what it says is no
Oh,
soldier
it does say times
in
of
time
peace.
of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. That is the Third Amendment to the Constitution of the United States.
I only have really about 45 to an hour to speak. So I want to kind of get on the main issue of what tonight's stream is supposed to be, either religion or creationism again.
I'm cool with it either way, considering.
Because HUMANE, makes a lot of really confusing points about the creationism versus science debate.
No one will ever win that debate, so what's the point?
There was a winner of the debate. I mean, it's not even the debate anymore. It is quite clear of what's true, what's accurate to reality. Science is accurate to reality because the methodology mandates it that it be testable, repeatable, and have predictive capabilities. Creationism has no such thing. It's adaptations of fairy tales, from 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, like there is no.
I mean, there's no debate that it's not demons possessing your 12-year-old child. She just has epilepsy. There's no debate about
Now,
whether
what
or
does
not
that have to
you're
do with creationism?
because creationism is fantasy,
Okay,
like
so
demons.
creationism has to be founded upon the Bible, right? There's no possibility of an alien race creating it, like, because Richard Dawkins has stated that that is a possibility. But apparently, that's saying that the origin of life couldn't have originated from some other creator. No, it has to be biblically based. That's your? It has to be biblically based. You have to believe in demons. You have to believe in hell and all of these other things.
Yeah,
Because that's what
It's an all or nothing.
creationism is.
No,
That's what creation. You don't even know what creationism even is. This is why
creationism
I'm
has
so
various
confused about
definitions.
You don't even know what
have
the debate
one,
is.
No,
I do.
you have one viewpoint of what things are, and it doesn't always have to fit your little model, because
That's not. It's,
because
Go ahead.
you have built a straw man of what creationism is, which is why you keep attacking these things.
It is what creationism is. It's the creation
No.
story from the Bible.
There are various people who believe in creationism
there's
who believe in the
different forms of
Bible.
creationism.
There are various people who believe in creationism who do
how
not
about
believe
you
in the Bible. They believe in other religions. There are also people who believe in creationism who think
about
we are
you
here by
define your
alien
terms?
design.
Just wait a second, though. Okay, creationism is the creation of life by something divine. Okay, let's go with that definition. Here,
Then
okay?
here you go.
Okay, if we go by that definition, then aliens would not be plausible because aliens would not be divine.
Humane.
Just for this
Define
debate,
your term.
okay?
What do you mean by creationism?
That life did not originate due to evolution or just random particles intercountering each other and forming a genome out of basically
You don't
inorganic
even know what
matter.
evolution is.
Well, evolution has to start off with a genome, which is what we talked about on Twitter. It has to have a genome to begin with. If you don't have a genome, evolution doesn't. It's not possible.
If you don't have a genome,
Okay,
life is not possible.
that's like saying, okay, how fast can I fly? And you're like, wait, you don't have the ability to fly. That doesn't matter if I don't have the ability to fly without an airplane. How fast can I fly? Let me do the calculations of how fast I can fly.
That's
That's fucking
false
stupid.
equivalence.
No, it's not a false equivalence because you need the foundation. Abiogenesis is required for evolution to even be possible.
No, it's not.
Yes, it
It's a
is.
straw man, technically.
No, no, it's not. The only thing required for evolution is a genome that's plastic to the environment.
Which means it requires
That's
a
it.
genome. How does your genome get here?
It doesn't matter.
It does
For
matter.
evolution, to explain biodiversity, it does not matter. The origin does not matter.
It does matter because
No, it
evolution
doesn't.
wouldn't be possible without that genome.
Life
So-
would be possible if the genome. So you're just speaking nonsense
It's
right now.
it's a presumption or an assumption. Actually, in this case, it's an assumption that a genome can happen, just
Hold on.
just randomly.
What
No,
I-
the
sporadically.
genome is already there.
From what I understand, evolution is an impersonal process where
Yes.
organisms adapt to changing environment.
Organisms have to exist.
Now, it doesn't say how organisms got started, but it explains how
But
they have changed.
But they have to exist in order to change.
You stop right there.
they have to exist in order to change. What part is that? That doesn't make sense. The genome has to be
at that
here.
point, you're not addressing evolution
Why not?
because you're addressing the origin of life, not the diversity of life.
Okay, so you have no explanation for the origin of life. You just assume that life
But that
originated.
But
That is
does-
that is an assumption of evolution, is it not?
But that does not mean that if I don't have an answer to something, that does not mean that you have the answer to something.
I know. I'm not saying that is proof of creationism. I'm saying that you are making an assumption, and you are saying no, that's not an assumption. That's not an assumption. I'm like, yes, that is an assumption that
It's
life
not
existed.
even an area of consideration for evolution because that's not a question that evolution even addresses.
That life exists. That
No,
seems.
the origin of life.
It is an assumption at the foundation of evolution that you are refusing to acknowledge.
But it's not even evolution that you should be arguing. If you're trying to argue creationism
It-
versus evolution, doesn't make sense.
Oh.
It should be biogenesis.
Hold
Yeah, creation versus
argue about-
abiogenesis. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Okay, so
Yeah,
if you
that is
wanna
a legitimate
debate abiogenesis versus
Not
creationism,
abiogenesis.
Yeah, because
That's
okay,
based
there's two views of of creationism. One incorporates evolution as to so it was all created, and the process by which it was created was through evolution. So creation or origin of it creates the the abiogenesis part of it, and then evolution occurs for the rest of it. There's another faction of creationism which says no, all life was created, and yes, we see small changes in life forms throughout their life cycles or throughout generations, but you never see drastic changes like what evolution describes. So those are the two views that I know of, are the two major views of creationism.
except if you look at the mainstream creationism story, there will have to be evolution on crack, meth, and steroids beyond the fucking wazoo, because somehow we got what 8 million species of plants, bacteria, and animals.
How long have we been? How long have we?
Kinds of animals.
How long have we been selectively breeding dogs? How long have
They're all
humans
still-
been? How long have humans been
They're all
selectively
still
breeding
one of the
dogs?
Species. They're all still the same species.
Dogs are all the same species. They're just different
All,
breeds.
all
right?
dogs are. Let me get the specific species name.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
all
all
dogs
dogs are the same species, even though all dogs, or even though all, like, let's take herrings, right? All herrings aren't the same species because...
All dogs, German Shepherds, Labrador Retrievers, Rottweilers, Golden Retrievers,
Yeah, those are the same species, and
cetera.
even though...
they
Okay,
are all Canis lupus familiaris.
But-
Variability within species.
Alligators and crocodiles are not the same species, even though you can't tell them apart, with the exception of a
think
tooth
they're
and an
even
elongated
different
claw.
I think they're different clades, even then.
Because you have the whole class, genus, species. I forget the rest of it, but you know.
That model of I just had his name in my head. That whole model of the 7 tiers, that's completely out of date because there are so many clades. There's like Arn Ra is doing a video series where he's going down the evolutionary path from the most simplest form of life to us. He's like at episode 22, and he just got to mammals.
Well, yeah, like perhaps I'm 20 years behind or something. Okay, maybe I am, but from what I've heard, I haven't heard that model has been thrown out yet.
By mainstream science, it has. It's way out of date.
Mm.
And I think we need to clarify what we mean by at what point does something become a species. And one argument I've heard is that it is when, at the point where the genetics becomes incompatible.
What I heard a definition of
organisms.
Yeah, I heard there was a hang on. There was to answer. I think there in my biology class they're talking about what is a species and it's something they could reproduce or something along those lines, and talking about evolution and I mean,
okay,
you mentioned it's very interesting to see.
So a liger is not a species.
I was talking about what they call speciation.
Quick point of clarification. So ligers and is it mules? Yeah, ligers and mules are not species.
According to the biology teacher, from what she said, that's what she was implying, that if it can't reproduce, then it's no longer a part of that species. And
so ligers and mules therefore would not be species.
I'm not sure what they would be.
Yeah, I'm not saying I entirely agree with the definition.
I'm pretty sure most mules and most ligers are infertile.
Yeah, which means that they are not a species.
I guess I don't know.
By the biology teacher's definition, we're also talking about when it came to evolution, like called natural selection. For instance, some turtles or some animals with long necks that could reach for food in trees, which survive better than shorter neck animals with shorter necks and things like that. That they would have a better chance of survival.
Well, and also some giraffes with fat necks that are bent at a wrong angle could have a better survival, and then they become the
No, they
dominant
don't.
species.
And-
It could
and
be
some-
based on nature.
On
Hey,
the environment.
it's based on the
Oh, yeah,
environment,
yeah,
and if
well-
the environment is such where a giraffe with a crooked neck has a better chance of survival, then you should see.
Yeah,
There's
and-
nothing
and-
stopping
and
that from being the
well,
dominant
I
form of
guess
life.
that could be true. I mean, sickle cell anemia is actually a beneficial trait
Yes.
if you live in Africa.
Because it makes
And-
you
and
less
another-
prone to malaria. Yes.
And another example I'd like to bring up is there, for instance, in the United
So-
Kingdom, when they have bad pollution, animals, like little moths, if they could survive by blending in with the trees that were covered in soot, would survive better than animals that were not of a different type of color.
So my question, what that list line of thinking leads us to, is what's to stop de-evolution, right? There are certain circumstances in nature which would cause a life form with inferior qualities to actually survive, have better chances of surviving, which is what he talked about with the sickle cell.
Yeah, but no,
Like,
no.
Well,
Sickle cell
and
anemia
an
is a
example.
superior trait if you're dealing with malaria.
Well, it is inferior because there's less.
No, it's inferior if you don't have malaria, but you have
Like,
malaria.
Okay, but
It's a bad. What he's saying is,
And this
Hello.
then sickle cell anemia, or yeah.
implies
Hello.
that one is always better than the other, and that's not always so.
Yeah, exactly. So then there is no actual evolution. There is just change from one form to
No,
another.
it is evolution.
No, well, no, because you just said it's not one is better than the other. But evolution implies that something is better than something else.
No, it doesn't.
A particular
No, it literally doesn't.
environment.
So what I'm saying, okay, here's the thing. Single-celled amoeba, human life, they are both equal. That's your what you're telling me right now?
I have no idea what you're.
Not one is not better than the other because the amoeba is adapted to fit its environment and the human is adapted to fit its environment. Neither of them is better evolutionarily speaking.
The species evolve with a survival instinct to better adapt with the environment.
Yeah,
if you,
and does an
if
amoeba
you-
adapt to its environment?
Yes.
Okay.
Amoeba,
What is this question you're asking of?
My
which is
question
better?
my question
Malaria.
is then evolution doesn't mean it doesn't mean improvement. It doesn't mean getting better. It just means okay, that's different.
No,
It doesn't mean improvement. It means better.
Particular environment, for instance.
No, evolution
You're-
means you have better
Okay,
chances
we got
to
2 minutes.
survive.
So my question
in your-
now is how did humans evolve from single-celled life forms when single-celled life forms were adapted to already fit their environment?
Because at each stage of their evolutionary path,
But
it was a better way.
why are there different stages then? You were saying
Because
that you're
evolution-
saying that the changes doesn't matter one way or the other. It's just an adaptation to their
Oh my
environment.
God!
Why would there be stages
are
of
you
this?
trying to
No,
not understand? HUMANe, this is a genuine question. Are you trying to
No,
not
I am
understand
questioning-
evolution?
I am questioning your
Multicellular-
premises. You are taking things for granted, and I'm pointing out how these are areas that you're taking for granted. You are taking.
These are not areas I take for granted.
There
You
would
don't
the
understand.
idea of stages implies
the
things
issue.
getting progressively better. Whereas you just stated with evolution, it is just different, not better. But when you're saying there's stages of it, that is not just different. That implies different levels. That means there is a scale of value.
Do we have to explain this to you once again? Evolution means that a species is better able to reproduce in its given environment.
Yes, and so
Okay.
amoebas could be considered more evolved
Let
than
me give you an
humans.
example. Let me give you an example.
Life forms that.
Eyes. Hey, shut up. Eyes are a fantastic evolutionary advantage.
Why are you changing
Well-
the subject here?
I said I was giving an example, you fucking idiot. Okay, eyes are a fantastic evolutionary advantage. But there are a species of salamander that have lost their eyes. Even though they still have the genes for it, they lost their ability, to see completely. That's because they live in a cave. There is absolutely no light. If there's no light, your eyes are useless. And at that point, your eyes are a significant source of infection. It takes a lot of energy to grow, maintain, and maintain your eyes. There's all kinds of specialized stuff going on, going just so you can have eyes. But if you can't use them, they are a detriment to you, and therefore it's better to not have them at all.
Okay, and so
talk about given environment, but that given environment changes significantly.
Okay, so in the example that you just gave, they still have eyeballs.
No, they don't have eyeballs.
They don't have eyeballs at all. It's not just that they've eyeballs.
They have the genetics for eyeballs, but they're just deactivated.
No.
Well,
do they have eyeballs that don't work, or do they not have eyeballs at all?
They just
skin.
They don't have eyes at all.
Okay, I'm gonna need a link for a source to that because if you're talking about the example that I think you're talking about, they still have eyes. Their eyes just do not function.
I have another example I could give you.
But here's my question. Okay, so same fish, one without eyes, one with eyes. Those are both equal, evolutionary speaking, because the ones without eyes are in that cave, and the ones with eyes are outside where they're not in that cave. Right? They're both adapted to their environment, so evolutionary speaking, they're both good, right?
Say it again. I was reading this article about blind salamanders. So say that again.
So the blind salamanders are on equal footing as the salamanders who can see that aren't stuck in that cave, right? They're all
that doesn't make any sense.
And that salamander
that question is incoherent.
No, it's not incoherent because the blind salamander is adapted to its environment, right? And then the sighted salamander is adapted to its environment. Right?
Okay.
So evolutionarily speaking, they're on equal footing. They're both adapted to their environment to the best of their abilities.
Again,
so
that's an incoherent question. I mean, it doesn't fucking matter.
Need to also remember that environments change. I mean, at one time we found tropical plants in the Antarctic.
Okay, so the environment in that cave, so there's a cave in with those salamanders, and now there's suddenly light pouring into that cave. Those salamanders are no longer adapted to their environment, and they all die off. And so evolutionarily, that's extinction, that's natural selection, right?
Sure.
So it means that provided that there is a cave into those caves, the salamanders who are on the outside are better off.
Is the genetic code going to know that?
Well, no, here's the other thing is if there is some kind of outside event outside of that cave that kills off all the sighted salamanders, then the salamanders who were blind were better off. Right? That's... So, my point here is then there can be no better because everything that you do, you're like, oh, hey, I adapted to fit my environment. Oh, shit, my environment killed me.
Which is why I said your question is incoherent.
No, it doesn't make any sense as to how it doesn't make no, not my question. How human life originated then does not make any sense using your explanation of how human life started, because every little change could be good for a temporary time and then be catastrophic later on. So there is no
any dinosaurs anymore. They were kings of they were the dominant species on the planet, and that meteor came in and killed them all because they couldn't adapt. Because they were too big.
Yeah.
Let's also handle the conversation over to some other people here. But another example I've seen people argue when it comes to evolution is that, for instance, wolves with their sharp teeth and their long claws, their sharp claws, that when they were domesticated dogs, their teeth were not as sharp, their claws weren't as sharp. And they also noted the differences between domesticated dogs and wild dogs. They would show over the course of generations there'd be certain physical changes, even down to certain changes of color of fur to that degree.
Okay.
Yeah. That was another example, and
wolves can still breed with dogs. There are half breeds, so
Well, yeah,
I don't understand how this is a different species or a
well,
change. I understand genes change. Your genetic code has changed since your birth. You are not the same as exactly the same genetically as you were when you were born.
Yeah, you are.
Hang on,
No.
Ham. Well, I wasn't trying to say it's a different. I'm not trying to argue that like domesticated and wild animals are different species, but that there are physical changes that they're going to go through for the next generation and so on and so forth over the course of time. I wasn't trying to like.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a recent news article about two astronauts, right? Both were twins. One stayed up in the upper atmosphere for longer, or well, up in space for longer than the other one, and now they're genetically different, like noticeably genetically different. Before, they were genetically identical. So your genes do change over time, and we don't know exactly why the astronaut who was up in space for longer, his genes are noticeably different from his twin. We just know that, hey, your genes do change over your lifespan based on various environmental factors.
I mean, it's possible that his genes are somewhat changed by the fact that he's bathing in radiation up there.
Yeah,
but,
that's a possibility.
I mean,
Well,
I'm
that is
skeptical of that article.
Well,
I mean,
okay.
what was that
You're
article?
highly skeptical of that, and yet you think that that is the very foundation for how human life is
Well,
explained.
keep in mind too, we're not talking about single individuals.
Can you all?
We are talking about generation after generation, and keep in mind we're
But
talking.
in order to do that,
we are talking about time periods that extend over millions of years. That's
billions.
A long time.
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how much time if the mutation is not possible. Mutation. So in order for your
You're saying mutations are not possible?
No, I'm saying that I'm saying you must allow for mutations to be possible.
Of humans.
You are saying mutations only happen between generations and not within individual organisms? That doesn't apply, or that doesn't
Evolutionarily speaking.
No, that does not fit what we see
matters.
with reality. Your mutations occur in individuals and in generations. If they didn't occur in individuals, they could not occur in generations.
From one species to another, the only mutations that matter are from the first generation to the next generation.
But okay, so here's another. Man, we're getting way off the. We keep moving this around, but that does bring up another point. Okay, how many times does a mutation get carried on to the children of that person with that mutation?
I don't know.
How many children? How many people with dwarfism have kids with dwarfism? It's not a 1-to-1.
We have mutations that we can trace back to, ancestors of entire clades. I think there's like I think there's like viral, genes that we can see where a virus infected the original host,
and
we can see those the same genetic code passed down into chimpanzees, humans, and orangutans, and all the other primates. We can also see where one of the chromosomes. We can tell that one of our chromosomes were actually two chromosomes that fused together, because we can still see the two ends of the chromosomes still in our DNA. Every human has this. Not all primates have this.
And to answer your question, Humane, of the definition of species, just so we're clear,
right.
A group of living organisms consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes or interbreeding the species is the principal natural taxonomic unit ranking below a genus and denoted by a Latin binomial Homo sapiens.
So by that definition, golden retriever and chihuahua are the same species, but an alligator and a crocodile are not the same species. So even though golden retriever and a chihuahua vastly different in their entire physical structure and in their appearance, their behavior, crocodiles and alligator pretty much exact same behavior. The similarities or the differences is something like a tooth and a foot.
You're not looking at what they are; you're looking at what they do.
Okay, so
Hey, I'm trying to get out the Google Hangouts. I lost where I was at. Can you just kick me out the call, please?
I don't know what that.
appreciate
You want me to
that.
kick you out of the call?
So
Yeah,
I-
you
I'll,
just
I'll just watch
close
this
the
later. I gotta
browser.
go. No, I gotta go. I did. I closed the app and.
So
Alright.
you're saying that Chihuahuas and Golden Retrievers, they didn't evolve
They are
from
not
different.
same species.
Okay, what? They're not the same species? A Chihuahua and a Golden Retriever?
No, they are the same species.
No, they are not. They are same genus. They are not same species.
But they can breed with one another.
They can breed with one in each other.
But they're not the. Okay. So.
The species
okay.
have to have same form and shape.
And be able to breed with
structure.
each other.
And
So
structure.
if two Golden Retrievers could not breed, they would not be the same species.
No, it just means they're
No,
infertile. One or the other is infertile.
Okay.
The
So so I'm trying to clarify here. Golden Retriever, Chihuahua are not same species. They're the same
No, they
genus.
are the same species.
no, they are not same species.
So,
Okay.
and-
They are not same. They're same genus, but they are not same species.
okay.
Well, then what are the species names for Chihuahuas and Golden Retrievers?
Chihuahuas and golden retrievers.
I said species names.
Oh, okay.
Shouldn't that be?
Like, don't portray me as an idiot, called him.
Uh,
Like, maybe I'm being a
I,
idiot here, sorry.
I asked the question and you just like did nothing.
Sorry, I just got here.
Okay.
Sorry. I was
But-
just trying to be positive and
yeah. So I would like to go back to what exactly evolution is, because it sounded like you're just saying, oh, it's just adaptation to an environment, right? Adaptation to an environment, in which case an amoeba is already adapted to its environment. Why would it need to become a multicellular organism? It seems like it's already evolved to fit its environment, which is why we still have amoebas.
No,
we
the
still have
dogs
single.
are
Oh, sorry.
dogs are Canis eupus, and there are several species of them. Lot of species.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'll have to research on that.
Eupus.
Okay. So, all right. So it seems like maybe Ham's definition of species was a little off, and maybe that's what's confusing me right here.
I think
Okay.
I just got
it
here, so
might
I don't
be
know.
Just a bit of confusion.
Like
'cause-
there were so many species of homos, and the only sapiens are surviving right now, which we are,
Okay.
and all the others, that are known in archaeology, they went
So,
extinct.
So it was originally described as survival of the fittest, right? But really, it's just the survival of the whatever, you got lucky.
No, the evolution is based on survival instinct. And it's the best adaptation.
It's based on a
to the
lottery.
environment.
It's based on a lottery.
Survival.
Oh,
It's kind of lottery because
Yeah.
environment can change and the different things can happen.
Yeah.
But if you are not best adopted, you will extinct, and if you are best adopted, you will survive.
I want to point this out. I just looked it up. Apparently, the domestic dog are comprised of two species: Canis lupus familiaris and Canis familiaris. So I guess there are two species.
So, and Lupus familiaris is probably the ones that look more like wolves, and the other ones are all the stupid dogs that are probably really they're not even they're inbred versions of dogs.
Almost
those are
all
the ones with
dogs
all
are
the
inbred.
those are the ones with all the defects and shit. So the Lupus version is probably like your Huskies, your Malamutes, your maybe your Saint Bernards. No, Saint Bernards are probably.
That's the problem with having purebred dogs if they keep breeding with.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, that's the problem with pure breeding, right? But wouldn't pure breeding be essential to evolution?
I would say maybe. I'll have to research on that.
Right. Okay. So a species.
Purebred is a result of evolution. Yes.
So a mutation occurs and a new species is created. Wouldn't it have to then keep breeding with itself because it couldn't breed with other species, and that would be pure breeding, wouldn't it?
Okay,
Well, some
humane.
species can crossbreed, within certain characteristics,
Well, then your
like
definition of
horse and
species.
donkeys.
Then your
Humane.
definition of species is incorrect.
Okay, humane. Speciation occurs over many generations, sometimes hundreds of thousands of
Okay.
generations.
And
Especially
there would
for
be pure
bacteria.
breeding in there, would there not?
No, the species can crossbreed like horse and dogs. The horse and donkeys.
Horse and
Well, yeah.
donkeys.
Horse and donkeys.
Okay,
That
so
sounds-
then this brings out the question. The definition that was supplied to me of what a species was doesn't
The
seem
species-
to be consistent.
It just have to have a certain similar form and shape characteristics.
Yeah,
Like our
Okay.
Okay, so
let
certain
me, let me
form-
clarify this. The species of definition of species is not it is a
Something
rule of
you guys
thumb. It's
can't
not
agree on?
100% accurate. Okay.
Okay, something
There's
you guys
like-
can't agree on and isn't something that
hey,
you
shut
can...
up! Shut up!
Yeah.
That there's like 5% of humans who have
A different
Neanderthal DNA because
We crossbred with
Neanderthals and
Neanderthal.
humans are
Yes.
occasionally cross-breedable.
we did crossbreed with Neanderthals. That's why we almost everyone has at least some genes of Neanderthals. So we.
Yeah.
They were homos, we are homos, and we were
Yeah.
able to crossbreed.
Speak for yourself. I'm straight as an arrow. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point I was making here is because Ham decided is like, oh yeah, you guys don't have an agreed upon definition of kind, but it sounds like your definition of species is not all that agreed upon, and it seems
But,
like
it
how
is
it's
agreed
applied
upon.
seems to be
It's just
pretty
Agreed
contextual.
upon, consistent cultivam.
The definition of species among biologists is agreed upon. There just happens to be
Well-
exceptions to that.
No,
Okay.
there are no exceptions. The breeding is not.
It's because the definition seems to be vague enough to incorporate that, yes, a whale is different species from a dog, sure, but a chihuahua can be or can't be a different species from a golden retriever depending on how you're looking at it and how you're classifying them.
Whales and
Well,
dogs
I
are.
think there's something called degree because you can breed a horse with a donkey and get a mule.
Yes, but then the
Yes.
mule is not a species because it can't breed. It is sterile.
No, mule is a species. It's an artificial. It's a crossbred. It's a species. It's not a naturally occurring species.
This is going through circles at this point. Like,
Yeah.
you wonder
Okay. So I do want to
And
circle back.
This
So
is why
I
I
want
keep pointing
to.
out. This is why I mentioned that Humane seems to want to not understand.
It's
rather
not a
than
not
try-
understanding.
try
Is
to understand.
I'm being skeptical of what you're telling me, which is what you're supposed to do with anything. Anytime somebody presents you with something that you're like, wait a minute, this.
Okay,
What
do you
what
have
are the
any skepticism
it has to be
creationism?
it has to be subject to testable results, right? Which is what I'm doing right now. I'm prodding your theory to see if it holds water. And right now there's lots of areas where it doesn't seem to quite hold water.
Well, I think
yeah,
also there is a matter of degree because just as there is inbreeding depression, there is also outbreeding depression, which is where
Species are always able to interbreed, and sometimes they can interbreed with the other species too.
Okay.
But it's not a definite. I mean, they should always be able to interbreed with each other unless there's a fertility issue or something.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yes.
So species can always breed with itself and can sometimes breed with other species.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
With a closely related species, a closely related species.
Okay.
well, I think there's.
Yeah.
I was
So-
thinking of salmon. There are salmon that will breed during even years and salmon that will breed during odd years.
And there are two separate types of salmon.
Well, the earlier
They-
species used to have seasons.
with each other, but if that happens, then they might not be able to. Then that generation would not be able to reproduce.
Well, earlier species were not able to breed around the year. They had certain seasons in which they used to. They still do. They fertility seasons in which females attract males and then they breed. But it was only in the later species that ability evolved, which they can breed throughout the year.
Okay.
So
I'm trying to understand, but like
I don't understand. So that makes them completely different species because they don't breed at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes them different species. They have to be, because like, how is that consistent?
No. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what distinguishes species from one another. It seems to be a bunch of very random characteristics.
It's just form and shape. The basic definition is only form and shape.
So one of the examples
anatomical characters like homos walk on two legs. So anyone who walks on two legs is a homo. Dogs have certain facial and other features. So all the canines are grouped in those features. All the cats are with similar cat-like. Yes.
Okay, shape and form. And so when a moth has a certain coloration in one area, but a different coloration in a different area of the world, that is two separate species, even though it's not a different shape or form, it's just a different coloration of pigment.
Yes. It's like a brown horse and white horse and black horse. They are all horses.
Yeah, okay, so those are all horses, yes. But a lot of different insect species are considered different species simply based on their coloration or pattern.
Yeah, no.
No, it's basic. They may have different colors too, but the differentiation is based on other characteristics.
Okay.
Because the primary way of differentiating species is through genetics.
But that doesn't make any sense either.
At genetic level, absolutely. The primary classification is based on genetics. You are right.
So
the currently accepted classification is based on genetics. Yes.
So why aren't humans classified as different species from other humans then? Because it's based on genetics, and there is a vast amount of genetic differences between someone like you and someone like me, and even someone like Ham or JJ.
No, there's not.
There's enough where they can use DNA evidence to predict or to solve crimes.
It's 1%. It's like less than 1%.
Okay, so how much differentiation is there between insect species as far as DNA goes? Is it more than 1%?
More than 1%.
Yes, of course, it's much more than 1%. Yeah, number of genes is different, then the base, the combination of bases are different. All these.
Because this.
Huge, it depends.
Well, I think the thing is there's degrees. You have, in this salmon species I was describing, the odd year and the even year could, in theory, breed and create a generation. But that generation then would not be viable or could not reproduce.
Why? Okay, I'm just wondering why you couldn't. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude.
Because you belong to the skipped year, so you cannot reproduce, and others belong to the reproductive year, so they can produce. So
that makes sense. Right. Thanks for explaining.
Yeah. Right.
I want to hear HUMANE address. I was trying in the Twitter chat room. I was trying to get HUMANE to address to provide the creationist explanation for certain characteristics of a species. Let's take whales for instance. They're properly whales are Oh,
Whales are not a species. Whales are a group of species. A whale.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Several
So
species.
whales
Okay.
are closely related to hippos, and there's numerous physical characteristics that they share. Um, we even see evidence that all whales are descended from a land-dwelling animal, and we
Yeah,
can
the
even
whales belong to the species that came on land and then decided to go back to sea. So they have these redundant legs, which they used to have when they
Hey,
were on the
can I finish?
land. Their fins.
I'm, can I finish? Um, and we even see in the fossil record, you know, the path from a land-dwelling creature all the way to whales as we know it. And evolution, provides the explanation that whales are descended from land-dwelling creatures, and they are closely related to hippos. What
Yes.
is the creationist explanation for these facts given?
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm not
Well,
asking you, Navade. I'm asking Humane, because
Ah,
Humane is apparently a creationist.
yeah,
No,
I don't know
I
their
am.
explanation.
I am neither.
Humane said it was either or.
I don't know their explanation,
Okay.
but you can find their fins and stuff. They are basically redundant legs to show that they were
Yeah.
they came
Well,
to land.
we see wrist and hand bones in their flippers, and
Right.
and if I was a god and I had all the knowledge possible, I had all the and I could design these whales to be absolutely perfect. Why the fuck would I give them, hand bones when I can give them
Wait.
fins like a fish?
Wait, what?
Because they have different purposes, maybe. I don't know.
No,
That's what I would be
The fins
They have no
serve
purpose.
the exact same purpose.
there's no
Okay, I
purpose
can
of
see
hand
that
bones and
as the
sea.
exact same purpose, but like that's
So-
just my
so,
personal thing. If I was
So
Sorry.
are there fish that are as large as whales that have the same fin-like structure as other fish, but whales that have that more hand-like structure of their fin?
No,
Right.
they have some redundant
I mean, if you
bones.
look at
No.
if you look at
So,
very
okay,
large
let's-
sharks, they have
so,
entirely different bone structure.
Yeah. So whale sharks, right? Those are the largest fish.
Bluefish, blue whale.
No.
The largest
I said no. That's the largest mammal. Blue whale is the largest mammal. The largest fish is a whale shark.
The shark is largest, yeah, and oldest. Shark is the first species on the planet which had bisexual
No,
reproduction. It's a very old species.
no. I'm just trying to get the
I'm screen sharing.
Okay, let me present you.
Come on.
Yeah. I hope it zooms in on this. Yeah. Oh shit.
Alrighty.
Okay. Here you can see the skeleton of a right whale.
Yeah.
You can see here. You see the bones in their flippers. Look at how similar it looks like to the bones of any other mammal. You have your upper arm bone. I forgot what it's called. You have your two bones in your
Okay.
forearm. You got your wrists. You got the fingers.
I get this.
Why would an intelligent
No,
designer?
hang on a second. You got to compare it with other animals that are of a similar size and see what their fins look like.
There's no
Maybe
similar size for whales. There is no similar size.
there's a whale shark.
No similar
What?
size.
Do you have a skeleton picture like this of a whale shark? Because whale sharks are called whale sharks for a reason.
Okay, why not?
That is a regular shark. Oh,
That's an
That's-
unusual.
that's not a whale
unusual-
shark.
Plus,
it's a shark.
Is it-
It's gonna
But
have
that-
similar.
but it's in a whale.
It's not a whale. It's not a whale.
Yeah, it's not a whale. It's not a whale. It's a whale shark.
That is not a whale shark. That is a regular shark. Look at
Yeah,
a picture
it's a-
of a whale
they're-
shark.
they're
So the
very-
up in the
they're
upper
gonna be
right there,
similar.
that is a whale shark. Look at its fit. Look at that is not the same as whatever the skeleton that you're pointing out.
Look, that's a shark right there.
Okay, I
The
see what
image in the upper right, the blue one, that is a whale shark. That is not the same image of what your skeleton is showing. Actually, look at the skeleton to the left of that. That is probably closer. Oh,
That's
hey,
an orca.
look.
No,
Oh, that
That's
is
an orca, you fucking retard.
okay. That's an orca, so that would be a mammal.
Orcas are dolphins.
No, orcas
Yeah,
are killer
here's
wales.
another
Those would be mammals.
diagram of
Orcas are
of a
dolphins.
shark
Orcas are the largest
skeleton.
Orcas are largest dolphins.
That's a humpback whale. Look, see? Ham bones. Well,
Ham.
Wait, you call them hand bones. Maybe
Well-
those. Maybe it's because the size of its fin is so big it needs the bigger bones, and it couldn't have the same fish-like bones. Is what you're. That's
Or-
the point I'm trying
or
to.
maybe that they descended from a land-dwelling creature, which
okay.
is the
So I don't know why that would be the more probable explanation, as opposed to the function
Because the-
of what it does
because-
requires stronger bones in that particular structure.
because
No,
we
because-
can look at the genetics and see that they're
No,
very
because that's
closely
presupposing the
related to
conclusion.
hippos.
No, it's not. It's
That
not a
is
big-
presupposing a conclusion. You have that conclusion in mind, and you are looking at the evidence to support your conclusion, not the other way
No,
around.
no.
We want
Better
like
explanation.
both of them have stresses.
Humane doesn't want to understand.
No, there is evidence, that they lived on the, in the archaeological evidence, they lived on the land, and then they went back to the to the water.
Okay.
It is
And
archaeological evidence.
archaeological evidence of whales on land.
The skeletons, the earlier species of whales.
How do you know that there's an earlier species of whales?
Because we can look at the fossil record.
Because you
'Cause you're-
see the gradual evolution.
And
you
that
know,
is, again,
like-
the circular reasoning. You're already presupposing evolution, which means, so there is an
and then-
evolution from this
and then
creature
the-
to that creature, so therefore these two are similar.
Okay,
This came first,
then
and
what
that
is-
came
what is your
erosa.
explanation? What is your explanation for the fossil record that shows the gradual change from
It
land
could just
creatures to
no.
whales? What is
You
your
are saying
explanation
it is.
for the
You are saying it is a
genetic
trans.
similarities to hippos?
No, we also see the evidence of the land, the legged creatures, their skeletons found in the oceans.
So-
after the earlier migration back to the water.
So we've got the skeletons of these land animals that are similar to whales, that are now at the bottom of the oceans as well, where they
They're like
went off the
basically hippos,
where they
you know,
tried to swim and they couldn't cut it, and so now they're at the bottom of the ocean.
No, they
or
were
they-
swimming. They were swimming, and like hippos can swim. They were swimming, but
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 they
they
died,
were-
and so now
but
there's
they were not
okay.
not
so
swimming
so there's
like a whale.
so you can follow the skeletons of this is a previous entity of that, and then you follow the fold from the land all the way into the water, and then you're like, okay, that's the narrative you're building, right?
That's not the that's
No,
not
we
the
are-
narrative
we're
we're
not.
building. That's the fact.
It can't- It
it-
hasn't
it
been
is
established as a fact. If it's a point of contention, you fucking idiot. You keep doing
Yeah,
this.
it's not a point of
Okay.
contention among biologists.
No, it is a point of contention. It's true, but there is a
Okay,
very
no, it's not a
strong-
point of contention. Ham is correct. Evolution is the absolute truth. Anybody who would dare question any part of it, any
No,
part
but
of that
they-
story, is a fucking idiot. Anybody who would
No,
dare
no,
question
but
the
he's
smallest thing.
right in the sense
No,
that
no,
there
no,
is
no.
very strong evidence. What he's talking about, there is very strong evidence. There is a lot of
No,
consensus.
I'm a fucking moron for
On
even
it.
questioning it. I don't know
Yeah,
why
no,
you're trying
no,
to defend.
Yeah,
No,
you are
no,
fucking idiot.
I'm the stupidest fucking idiot in the
No,
world
no,
because
You are actually
'cause
finally
this-
telling the truth.
because this
Lot of
doesn't
biologists-
quite make sense.
Okay.
Some
The-
biologists
Because this
question
seems like a
this
very
too,
long and convoluted explanation of things that requires
It's not
yeah.
long and convoluted. It makes sense. It fit all the puzzle pieces fit.
Well, evolution is the strongest theory available right now, but evolution is still a theory. It's never proven. It's not a law. You know, there are
not according to Ham. According to Ham, it's the only explanation. So anybody who would dare try to come up with anything else can be refuted with evolution.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it is true. It's true.
No. It's any other idea that might contradict evolution as to how we got here can be refuted with evolution.
There are a lot of contradictions in evolution.
Hey, whoa! What are you doing? There can't be any contradiction. No, evolution is flawless. It is immaculate. No. Wait. Hey, wait.
For example, since Darwin, they are looking for missing link, and they have not found the missing link so far. So we have no explanation.
I don't know what you're talking about and trying to actually take this as a rational discussion and actually try to apply science to this. Because evolution is the absolute gospel of what happened. There is no other possible explanation explanation because every other possible explanation can be refuted using evolution.
I want to ask Naveed a question.
No, we have no explanation how a chimpanzee built the most complicated structure known in the universe, which is a frontal lobe. How the chimpanzee built this most complicated structure known in the universe within few hundred years. There is no explanation. There's no explanation.
Well, they didn't build it. They didn't.
Naveed,
they got lucky. They won the lottery.
Naveed, when you say a missing link, what do you mean by missing link?
Well, Darwin said that there should be some species between chimpanzees. Between the early hominoids and the human beings. That are found so far, to explain the development of frontal lobe.
We found the missing link. It's called Australopithecus.
No, Lopithecus is not a missing link, because it still does not explain how did the most complicated structure ever in universe known so far can evolve in such a small period of time. And evolution is slow.
I've heard the explanation.
Or it can be rapid.
It's a result of at least of several mutations, two of which was
mutations do not build complicated structures, my friend.
Yeah,
mutations do not. No, they
wait,
don't.
Wait.
No, they don't.
No. That would be required for evolution. It would be required for evolution for mutations to build complicated structures.
History. A mutation got deactivated.
You don't understand. You don't understand what I'm talking about. This is the most complicated. It has billions of neurons, trillions of connections, hundreds and thousands of chemicals, and your supercomputer right now, it's about 1,000,000 times behind it. This is the structure we are talking about. It's like.
But you already have the brain. It just got bigger.
No,
it's not bigger. It's not bigger. It is extreme. All the executive qualities of your brain, they did not exist before frontal lobe. Your imagination, your sense of time, your sense of future and past, your creativity and your all these functions,
abstract thought,
abstract thinking, your what we call right brain stuff. It never ever existed in any known universe before. It should have taken about 1 billion years to evolve, even if it evolved. But according to the archaeological.
Have a frontal lobe. Ours are just bigger.
Who has frontal lobe?
All mammals.
No mammals have frontal lobe. Who has? You mean chimpanzee has frontal lobe? That is the closest species right now.
All mammals have frontal lobes.
No.
Horses, dogs, cats, Lions,
they have
elephants,
no,
they all have frontal
no,
lobes.
they don't have front. They have cerebral
do.
hemisphere. They have cerebral hemisphere, which has the parietal lobe and the occipital lobe and the other lobes, but they don't have frontal lobe.
Yes, they do. Ours are
No.
just bigger.
No, they don't, and they don't have none of these qualities that we have.
They
And
do. They
don't.
They do. They absolutely do. Ours are just bigger. We are just more capable.
What qualities do they have? Do they have sense of?
Dogs.
Have you?
Dogs have characteristics of humans at age 4.
What characteristic? Like what? Like what? You don't even realize what you're talking about when you say human characteristics. These human characters are not found in any of the animals. They don't have. They simply don't have.
Yes,
Planning,
they do.
planning, organization.
Have you ever seen the elephants mourn the loss of one of their own? They have a fucking little ceremony around it.
Emotions does not have anything to do with frontal lobe, my friend. That is present in primitive animals, but it has nothing to do with frontal lobe. Frontal lobe is not related to the to the emotions. That's the midbrain, which is even before animals, even before mammals. It's present.
Chimpanzees, dolphins, and a few other species of mammals are capable of self-reflection. They can recognize themselves in a mirror. Dogs aren't capable of doing that, but dolphins can. Chimpanzees can. I think elephants can.
Yeah. Hey, Naveed, can you say this? Why are you running?
Why am I running?
Oh my God! Really?
Live. Someone in the live chat.
No, they don't.
I don't get it.
Well, the orcas have a small frontal lobe, and that's why orcas have some of the qualities which humans have. Like they have a family structure. They have a culture, things like that. And they strictly follow the culture. Although it's debatable whether culture is a good thing or bad thing, but they have they show some of these things like humans, but no one else has it. No one have, even the other dolphins don't have it.
Have what?
This imagination and creativity and
yes, they do. Elephants are well known for being able to pick up a brush and do little paintings. They can even paint themselves.
Yeah, and parrots can hold conversations. It's not like it's a trained trick, right? It's not like it's something that they learned and were rewarded for, and so they keep doing it. With elephants, it fucking definitely is, man. Look at look at those places where you're talking about where elephants pick up a paintbrush and do paintings. How did they get the elephants to do that? They zap it with a cattle prod until it does what it wants. They torture those elephants. They torture the shit.
Have a totally cynical and anti-evolution, interpretation of everything.
No, they torture the shit out of elephants in order to get them to draw pictures because they train them to do that. They aren't creating new things. They are going through the motions.
People in your camp do not understand what imagination is. I mean, the computer in front of you, the computer chip in front of you, that's imagination. Your rockets that flying into the space, that's imagination. We are having conversation, although some of us may be living in Africa or Australia or South Pole or North Pole. or maybe even on Moon, on Mars, and we can have a chat over here, sitting in our bedroom. This is imagination. All right, this is what we are talking about. You cannot compare it with someone hold a stick between two fingers and draw a couple of lines. That's not even a trillionth or gazillionth part of it. You cannot bring that as an evidence. And what are you talking about? Size? Our brain is 3 times the chimpanzee's brain. 3 times. That means times 3 that took up to chimpanzee should have taken from them to us to evolution. That's like about 4 billion years. So we should have evolved from chimpanzee should have taken 8 billion years.
We had 2 mutations early in our history.
Which mutation? Which mutation?
Hey! I was about to fucking say it. Okay, one of them was a mutation that another species of primates helped prevent brain cancer, but restricted the size of our brain. That mutation got turned off, so we're more susceptible to brain cancer, but we get to grow bigger brains. The other one
What is that mutation?
The other one
What?
is sagittal crest.
Okay, I'm a little confused about this mutation.
The crest on top.
I'm a little confused about this
of most primates.
You don't understand the concept of
the brain. That mutation got deleted.
Hang on a second.
It got turned off.
We
have a much weaker bite pressure, but we have a much larger brain capacity.
All right, I'm a little confused because you're saying
you don't understand the concept of mutation. It's not mutation. Do not cause evolution. Are you kidding me? Evolution is
evolution because evolution hinges on mutations.
Right. So what you're describing? Can I?
Evolution is a complicated process.
Let the main talk.
Okay. Can I jump in for? I have a question. I have a question about what you just described there.
You've shown yourself to not understand what the hell you're saying.
You have very raw concepts.
Shut up.
You have probably Googled.
This is.
All right. I just want to ask this question. So what Ham was just describing is a gene being turned on and off, right? That means that gene was there previously. It wasn't a new gene that was added that gave these features. It was an on and off switch, which that means it's been there since the very first amoeba had all of these on and off switches, and that one at the end, or that's a brand new thing that only existed in chimpanzees.
Of probably mammals that didn't have these, then they developed it, and that allowed them to not die of brain cancer.
But you turn that off, and then you get bigger brains. So, what was the benefit of not having brain cancer when wouldn't it have been made more sense to have a larger brain and not have that gene be there to begin with, right? Like earlier mammals could have a larger brain. They'd be susceptible to brain cancer, but they'd have a larger brain without that gene being there in the first place.
A bigger brain consumes more calories.
Okay. So they weren't able. Okay.
A crocodile.
Okay. So it was a car without brakes. We put brakes on it, and then once we got to roads where we could actually drive these fast cars, then we took the brakes off.
A crocodile has a much slower metabolism, has an incredibly tiny brain, but it only needs to eat like once a month. A human, we gotta eat damn near every day because we're warm-blooded and we have such a massive brain.
Okay, that makes a little more sense now. I just wanted to, the gene being there and just being turned off and on doesn't quite make sense because the evolution would have been that gene being there in the first place. Wouldn't it? The fact of it being turned on and off seems to be a little bit more like an environmental effect.
There had been a point where that gene was not there.
No.
But then it did come into existence.
Do we know? We know
No,
when that gene came into
hold
existence?
on.
Oh my
Okay,
God,
all right.
Naveed.
Let
Let me
Naveed, yeah.
tell you,
Okay.
because you guys are not going on the right direction.
No, I'm just asking questions.
There is addition of new gene, there is mutation of gene, and there is expression of gene. These are
Okay.
all 300% different things.
Okay.
Okay, so we have, like humans, we have genes for everything. You have genes for black hair and brown hair and
Yes.
golden hair, whatever hair. It just depends on what gene is expressed in you and what genes are suppressed in you. All right.
Yes.
Like you can have
Yeah, that-
you have melanin gene, but in white people it's not expressed. In black people it is expressed. In brown people it's little expressed. Things like that. Okay.
Okay.
So
That makes sense.
So when you say that the gene was turned off or turned on, it's not turned off or turned on. This is just a really stupid thing. It was not getting expressed in certain species, and it's getting expressed in certain species. It provides absolutely no ability to grow anything further than it already has. It has
Yeah.
absolutely zero to do with it.
Okay.
It is ridiculous explanation.
Okay.
The people come up with, you know.
So
There's nothing.
so what you're saying is so the gene is there, it's just whether it's expressed or not. Okay. That
We all
makes
have same genes. We all have same
Okay.
genes.
that is something I'm completely on board with. Now my question is, how do we get new genes?
New genes. Gene is is the most complicated structure known in universe. Okay.
But no. But hang on a second. I gotta jump in there. That can't be true because they happen by random forces of the nature created it.
No, it's not. It's not random. It's Darwin said it happens with the due to the survival instinct which makes you adapted to the environment. Environment.
But my question is, the very first gene wouldn't have been able to realize it needed to adapt to its environment. The very first gene would have just been there.
No, but first of all, I was trying to get in there, but I couldn't. Yeah. The thing is that the multicellular organisms evolved from the cellular, unicellular is a function of specialty. You know, like you do. You take science, then you take biology, then you take zoology, then you specialize in certain species and stuff like that. You know, so multicellular organisms are basically just more specialization. Okay, certain tissues will organize into certain cells will organize into certain tissue. It will make a heart. They will organize into and all the. So amoeba has all these functions too, but they are not specialized. They are done by one cell. And more the species get complicated and evolved, more specialization they have in different parts. You know,
so is the amoeba better adapted to survive, or is the human better adapted to survive?
Amoeba is amoeba is surviving up to the date. That means it is very well adapted to its environment. Otherwise, it would have extinct.
So the human is no more evolved than the amoeba.
Humans are definitely more evolved than amoeba because we have more specialized functions, and we can do much more than an amoeba can do, and we have much more capabilities.
But that doesn't seem to quite make sense because you just said the amoeba was adapted to its environment and humans are adapted to our environment. And then how can we be more evolved? Shouldn't we be equally evolved?
No, let me tell you. You have hands and a surgeon hands.
No.
But surgeon, you cannot do surgery like hands, like surgeon, because his hands are more specialized in surgery.
Okay, that implies that surgery is better than not surgery. That's the same thing as saying being a human is better than being an amoeba, right?
Guys.
There's an implication
more
in there.
Evolved or less evolved or equally evolved are meaningless, incoherent.
No,
terms.
It's not. No, it's not because we're talking about the process of evolution being how a creature adapts to its environment. Meaning that the amoeba has used the process of evolution to adapt to its environment. It has adapted as much as the human has adapted to its environment. Has it not?
Yeah, that's true. That's
Then we
pretty
are
much
equally evolved.
we are not equally evolved. We have more capabilities. Like
Okay,
I said,
that's
animal-
implying that those capabilities is superior. Why would those capabilities be superior if we are both equally adapted to fit in our environments?
No, they are not necessarily superior. For example, if you are drowning in water,
Yes.
you know,
Amoeba doesn't have to worry about drowning in water.
I want to get back.
If you are drowning in water, the fish is better evolved than
I
you.
want to
But
get
no,
back to the question.
An
I
amoeba
want a
doesn't have to
humane-
worry about that
humane
either.
Answer. I want to go back to the question. I want a humane answer that we've completely deviated from.
Okay.
The original question was: we have all this fossil, genetic, and physical trait evidence, about how a
Okay.
whale's evolved from a land-dwelling creature.
And
What
I
is
don't
the
agree with that.
creationist alternative explanation for that?
Okay, the creationist perspective is that animals do not evolve from one species to another. They remain in their own species, right? You criticize the definition of kind, but that seems to be pretty prevalent when you're talking about a species remaining within its own kind. Although kind is I agree, it is a very generic definition, but it is very similar to your definition of species. Is
No,
that
it's not.
species do not change from one to another. That is the
Okay,
creationist point of view. In that case, then you may see similarities between species, but that does not mean that they evolved one from another. It just means that they serve similar functions. It is the idea that a species' genetics and its makeup is based on its function, not its evolution. So you'll see creatures that have similar functions, like, oh, hey, these creatures have 4 legs. Okay, they have similar genetic code. They have similar... You'll see these similarities because they're doing the same things. Creatures that are bipedal.
What is the creationist explanation?
What do you mean the creationist explanation? The creationist explanation is just that's how things have always been.
So you don't have an explanation.
Oh, God.
The explanation is that's how creatures are, and they reproduce, and they may change over time, but they will never change drastically to the point where they stop being what they were.
We do have evidence that they change over time.
No, let me jump here. There are two things.
I want Humane to answer this question.
I did answer that question.
He's swarming all over the place.
I am not a creationist. I just think it is a valid theory because it seems to fit the facts.
No, let me.
Okay.
What facts?
Humane.
It seems plausible given what we observe.
Explanation is in defiance of the facts.
Let me.
It is
So
in all.
So you think it's either or is what you've said?
I think it could be either or. I don't know which one.
No, you don't think it's either or. You think it's not evolution at all.
Well, I don't know if it's evolution. There are things about evolution that do not make sense.
That's what I've got from you every other stream I've had.
That's because you've been arguing in favor of evolution, and I've had to provide the counter argument.
What
Were you the creationist, I would have to provide evolutionist arguments.
No, let me.
I am trying to understand both.
Provided?
I am trying to understand. I just provided one. That
No,
species
hold on.
are what they were from creation, and they won't change drastically to be something completely different.
Okay.
You won't see a single-celled organism turn into a multi-celled organism.
Explanation for the fact that we seem to have fossil and genetic evidence that whales are descended from land-dwelling creatures.
That's only if you assume that whales were evolving from those other species instead of those other species just being another species that died off.
So you're just going to ignore the evidence. That's your explanation.
No. It's not evidence. None of this is evidence.
It leads to a narrative only if you think that narrative is possible. Or if you don't think that narrative is possible, then it doesn't lead to that same conclusion.
So
if you don't think evolution is possible, then it's impossible for some land animal to turn into a whale.
So you're just going to ignore the evidence. That's it.
It's it only fits within your frame of reference. If your frame of reference is not in play, then that explanation doesn't make sense.
Your explanation ignores the facts.
the facts do not conclude conclusively that something evolved into a whale.
Do.
No,
The only explanation that takes into account all given facts, all the evidence that we have.
Okay, so so creationism is wrong because evolution
all together in coherent form is evolution.
Yeah. Okay,
it's evolutionary explanation.
All right, what you're doing right now is exactly what they were saying when Galileo was saying no. The sun doesn't orbit around the Earth. The Earth orbits around the sun.
Completely different.
No, what they were doing is they were saying the facts of today say the sun orbits around the Earth, and you are providing information that contradicts what the facts are. So you are the one in wrong. You are the one against science because you're saying this Earth.
You're not providing any information. You're not providing any.
You are concluding.
You are dismissing information.
You are dismissing what I'm saying because you've said this is the way things are, so any contradictory can't be true.
I'm dismissing what you're saying because you're not providing an explanation. You're directly ignoring information.
So the explanation is things have been this way. They don't change from one to another. All of these species were already multi-species from the start. No new species have been developed from other species.
That we only find, modern whales within this given period, but 1 million years ago or 10 million years ago, we see no modern whales. You will never see a Homo sapien fossil alongside a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You will never see that.
Except when you do.
You don't.
There's a fossil, I don't know if it's a legitimate fossil or not, of a human footprint inside of some kind of dinosaur's footprint.
I know exactly
that is fake.
Evidence that was
fake.
That was fake.
It's doctored and faked. Okay.
Yeah, it was proven to be fake too.
All right.
It was actually the footprint of another dinosaur, except the toes filled in, and it sort of kind of resembles
a human footprint. It was another dinosaur. Okay. So you're saying that we never found a modern whale's skeleton deeper than a certain point, and you're also part of this is believing that
correct. You will never find that.
Okay, so part of this is that the layers are correct, right?
Yeah. You will find that there will be subdivisions and upheavals, but that's why you can do radiometric dating and compare it to all the other layers and all the other fossils that you find in there.
And the radiometric dating is accurate, which is right. Which is why they use carbon dating, right?
It's very accurate given its range. Within the range of its accuracy. And given the right environments, it can be extremely accurate.
Let me see if I can find this real fast.
This is probably the most calm part.
Of course, he's going to try to pull up some case where they try to carbon date a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
No, or they this is something a 75 million year old dinosaur. That doesn't make any sense because they would have died out long before. Was it several 100 million years, right?
What kind of dating method?
Let me see if I can find this.
By the way, I'm not an expert on radiometric dating.
I don't think any of us are either, so no worries. But
none of us are experts on anything.
No.
Oh shit! Apparently he joined the call twice.
Okay.
But yeah, you're the expert of making HUMANe want to blow your brains out with a shotgun in frustration. That's the one thing Ham's an expert on, and HUMANe is an expert at pushing Ham's buttons. So
yeah, and HUMANe is pushing my buttons because he refuses to answer the question.
I answered the question. You just didn't accept the answer. Because you reject your answer based on your answer, which is not how you debate.
Your answer was not an answer.
You're saying my explanation is correct, therefore your explanation cannot be correct. That was your rebuttal.
Because your answer ignored information.
No.
I was asking you, given the facts that we have,
It's not a
what is
fact.
your explanation?
The only reason that you claim it is a fact is because it is circular reasoning. You are using your conclusion that evolution happened, therefore we see this fossil, then this fossil, then this fossil, therefore this species evolved into that species evolved into that species. You started off with the conclusion of evolution, then you looked at those information and you concluded evolution.
I provided a link in the chat because the effeminate degenerate is just
the Piltdown man the Piltdown man was revealed to be a hoax during the generation it came out in. I don't know why creationists still keep trying
I'm
to
not
point
sure
it
what
out
you're
as
talking
if
about.
it's
Piltdown man?
Piltdown man.
Yeah, the effeminate
not-
degenerate said in the chat the dino is a scam. The footprints were faked by farmers in the 1930s, and I provided a link to what she sent.
Okay.
It's even worse than that? Oh, Jesus Christ.
Hello, loudmouth. How you doing today?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, are you talking about the Pulsley Lakes man tracks, the human tracks that you're talking
okay,
about?
so that is misinformation. I will accept that. That's
Yeah, most so-called out-of-place ancient artifacts that they say prove the evolutionary dating method's incorrect, all of them really are proven to be hoaxes when they're investigated in the slightest.
Yeah, there's some guy, I think in New Mexico, or he lives somewhere in the southwest United States, but he claims to have all this evidence that humans lived with dinosaurs, yet he never hands it over or let scientists come in and inspect it, because he knows that they'll find, oh, wow, you artificially aged this bone with coffee grounds or chicken shit.
Birds are dinosaurs, so humans have interacted with dinosaurs.
well.
I guess you're right.
You always got to say non-avian dinosaurs.
Okay. There is another example. Well, this is something, I don't know if they've provided a good explanation for this, but they have found living DNA inside dinosaur bones, inside the marrow, right? So
they found fragments of DNA, I believe.
Yeah, the oldest complete DNA structure was 700,000 years old. All right. So that's pretty much why Jurassic Park is impossible, because any DNA in any dinosaur fossil is degraded beyond any use.
Which makes me sad.
Yes, isn't that sad?
So this is
There's
something.
actually effort to bring back the woolly mammoth.
Preserved dinosaur cells found. This is.
They found...
Yes, but nothing.
Yes.
But no intact DNA sequences. Nothing you can use to bring back a dino.
Okay, I'm not saying we should, but it just seems. But you're talking about something that is.
They probably wouldn't even be able to survive.
You're talking about something that is several 100 million years old. It should not be possible to find living DNA of that.
Well, there is no living DNA, all right. But yes, sometimes soft tissue does fossilize. It's rare, but it does happen. This is
because this is with this from the Smithsonian. Because I remember reading this and I was like, that's interesting.
But yes, we know soft tissue does fossilize sometimes. We found preserved organs of organisms even older than
this
the dinosaurs.
This is not fossilized. Blood vessels. Sorry, that's right. So, okay. So I'm gonna send this link.
By the way, Humane, do you agree that birds are dinosaurs?
No.
Of course.
Proven fact, man. I mean, velociraptors were covered in feather plumage. All right, they even had.
How can they know that? Because they didn't used to.
We found fossils of them with feathers.
Well, we found feather impressions in the fossils.
Okay, so yes, velociraptor. So they're
many dinosaurs.
Okay.
All right.
So they were more akin to emus and ostriches then, which explains the elongated toe. And not
no.
So were they still
not
reptiles?
necessarily. Well, emus and ostriches that had a flying ancestor, okay, and lost the ability to fly, whereas Velociraptor never had a flying ancestor. It never could fly.
Why was it covered with feathers?
To keep it warm.
They had nothing to do with flight, okay?
But okay, so they weren't reptiles. They were birds, right? Or were they reptiles covered in feathers?
The term reptile has no taxonomic meaning.
Yeah, the term reptile has no taxonomic. Because here's the thing, though, you would
so birds are warm-blooded, reptiles are not. How does it have no taxonomic?
Hold on. Let me explain this.
Birds can shiver, reptiles can't.
Are closer related to birds than they are to turtles. Yeah, you would judge a crocodile and a turtle as a reptile and not a bird. So thus, the term reptile doesn't have a good taxonomical
I guess maybe I should rephrase my question then. So velociraptors did not have scales or reptilian-like skin.
No, they did have scales on some parts of their bodies and feathers on most parts of their bodies.
Scales and feathers.
There's a primitive.
So they were cold-blooded. They had teeth instead of a beak. They had feathers, and they had scales.
They had feather. Modern birds have scales. Have you seen a bird's feet? Their feet are scaly.
Penguins have feathers, yet they don't fly.
No. Okay. And so the velociraptors had scales in the same way that chickens have scales on their feet. Not scales all over their body, but scales on their appendages, like their feet and maybe their beak or maybe around their face and stuff.
Yeah, around their faces and their hands, yes.
But not over their entire body, which was previously.
Of their body was covered in feather plumage.
Yeah, because previously they used to show velociraptors like Jurassic Park, where they're entirely covered in scales.
We now know that portrayal is wrong.
Okay.
In fact, they addressed that in the latest Jurassic Park movie.
Yes, they did actually. There was a line to kind of retcon that where he says, all right, if we made the dinosaurs look accurate, they'd probably look a lot different, but you don't want accurate. You want what draws crowds. Remember, the ones in Jurassic Park, they're man-made creations. Yeah. They're not natural dinosaurs.
Yeah, okay.
But yes, they even had primitive wings feathers, which probably, they weren't used for flight, but they were probably used for displays. Similar, again, it's kind of similar to an ostrich. Ostriches don't fly, but they do use their wings for balance and for displays. And Velociraptor also had wings that probably could have served similar function. It's even possible, they say, that it could have flapped its wings to give it a bit of heft. It couldn't have flown, but maybe that would have given it extra jumping distance.
The original purpose for wings, for developing wings, was not actually for flight, but to keep eggs warm.
Well, actually, I've heard that they're saying it was from birds evolved from small tree-dwelling dinosaurs that climbed up, and they hopped from tree to tree, and eventually similar to like a flying squirrel or sugar glider, eventually spread out their wings to glide, give them more distance, and they got eventually better and better at gliding over the generations, that eventually they could pick themselves off the ground. And then later they lost their teeth because a flying animal has to keep its weight to a bare minimum, and a beak is much lighter than a jaw full of teeth.
And dinosaurs are already kind of built lightweight because they have hollow bones.
Certain ones did. Others had heavy bones. There's quite a number of them.
Yeah, I imagine the sauropods have some really dense bones.
Really heavy bones, yeah. And sauropods probably didn't have feathers. I mean, there's no evidence they did. They may actually have had feather quills, but they certainly weren't covered in feathers.
By the way, I believe the proper term to describe reptiles is tetrapods. But that
no. Tetrapods encompass all four-limbed animals. Reptiles, birds, mammals, and amphibians would all be.
I was about to make that point too. So it's kind of
Sauropsids, what you're referring to. Birds as well as reptiles all fall under the classification of sauropsids, essentially. In terms of like the warm-blooded, cold-blooded angle, certain turtles, sea turtles, actually do have a partially warm-blooded metabolism. S-man's gone. And and there actually are certain mammals actually that are cold-blooded, believe it or not. So it's really not as big a distinction as many believe.
Well, wasn't it possums are run at a much cooler temperature, which is why they're immune to rabies?
Yeah, I believe possums are one. They
doesn't mean they're not warm-blooded.
What?
Just because they run cooler doesn't mean they're not warm-blooded. Warm-blooded just means the ability to generate your own heat.
Right. Actually, the proper term, when warm-blooded and cold-blooded are both kind of misnomers, because a reptile actually in the hot sun will have warmer blood than a mammal, but it's really endothermic or exothermic. Most reptiles and amphibians
are exothermic, yeah.
Temperature of their environment, whereas the mammals and birds, all right, they have an internal metabolism that heats their bodies and it stabilizes their temperature.
It's just easier to say warm-blooded and cold-blooded, yeah.
Right, yes, but they do believe that dinosaurs, yes, were primarily warm-blooded.
Meaning
in fact,
meaning they probably weren't lizards.
No, they definitely weren't lizards, no. But they were closer related to birds. But yes, they had warm-blooded metabolisms.
Okay.
And many were covered in feathers.
Very, very odd.
Like, we've also found a preserved dinosaur heart, and it showed a 4-chambered heart like a warm-blooded animal, all right? Whereas
because
most reptiles have only 2-chambered hearts.
Oh, thank God I could join before they killed the stream. Thank fuck, my computer just went spastic for a minute.
Hey, what was that thing about you endorsing the YouTube headquarters shooter?
What?
Joke's on you, dickhead. I was listening to the stream on my phone when my computer spurged out on me.
When I first heard that, I made a snide comment that someone was angry about YouTube demonetizing their videos. I didn't think that would actually be the case. God damn it!
You jinxed it, loudmouth.
I did not think that would actually be the case. I was half joking.
Half joking. Oh my God.
It turned out to be fucking true.
I got another link for you, Humane, so let me provide that in the
The YouTube headquarters shooting is yet another reason why you don't send a woman to do a man's job.
At least this time she used a handgun, so you can't blame AR-15s for it.
Well,
which is why you don't send a man.
I actually thought for a second that she was a tranny, but apparently she's not a tranny.
Oh God.
She's actually kind of attractive, despite being kind of.
I don't think so, man.
Robotic and horrifying.
Oh,
her face looks very masculine, and her arms were thick, so I assumed that she was a tranny, but apparently she isn't.
I guess that's why I find her attractive.
The TERFs are going to be.
She looks like a tranny.
All the TERFs are going to be like, and this is why everything is misogyny.
That's
all the TERFs in the world, because like they have the victim complex, and they're all like.
Misogyny? Someone wants to give me a massage?
Yes, they want to massage my knee. So when you say misogyny, I'm assuming you're saying you're going to massage my knee.
There's probably only like 50 TERFs in the entire world.
Apparently, the effeminate degenerate says no, you should send a trans woman. Hell, maybe she might do the job even better. Who knows? You know, she'll be able to punch harder, and she'll be able to distract people.
No, you know what you ought to do? You ought to send a black, disabled, trans, Muslim, autist, Down syndrome, because they'll feel so guilty. They'll have so much white guilt that they'll just, shoot themselves. Oh God! You're trying to shoot me? Oh, let me help you. Bang!
I mean, she was guys. I mean, that woman is dead, and she obviously had serious mental issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean. Yeah,
she was weak.
Oh God. So, regardless,
I would so never be able to monetize a video if I was ever an actual YouTuber.
If you made actual videos, all you talk about is single-payer healthcare and evolution and shit.
Oh God, I'd be like bored like in episode 2.
Yeah, you'd be like, okay, everybody. I believe in single-payer healthcare because I believe in single-payer healthcare, or I don't know what exactly you'd say, but you'd say something. Then you'd shit onto the president. Well, not obviously, literally, just figuratively.
No, I would literally fly out to Washington D.C., get a helicopter, get the harness so I could wheel myself down and pull my pants off and squeeze out a turd. Maybe I'll go to White Castle and Taco Bell and Burger King, get a real diuretic shit going.
I don't know, but
That is so fucked up.
yeah,
Then the
Well,
FBI
yeah.
busts down my door because I just made a threat to the president. I was going to shit down his throat.
Oh God. Ham has thought this through. So Loudmouth, did you ever believe in creationism?
maybe as a little kid, when I believed in Santa Claus.
When I was little, I thought the Earth was flat when I was 5 because I literally didn't know any better. It wasn't because of religion. I literally thought. I never saw a hill until I was a few years old. I just assumed.
And evolution.
I hope that's not a joke. Right?
I'm not joking.
I never saw a hill, so I thought the Earth was flat. And as soon as you see a hill, oh, the Earth isn't flat. Is it?
Well, Humane, I swear to your God, I didn't know any better until I actually saw a fucking globe, and I'm like, oh. Well then, I was wrong.
Yeah, I was like, topography doesn't change the difference between a flat Earth and a non-flat Earth. That just.
Well, I also just saw the.
It actually would.
Know any
It
better.
actually would.
I mean, the most flat place I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah,
is
because
Kansas.
when people espouse the flat Earth theory, they mean completely flat, as in there's nothing. We're 2D. That's the explanation they give, right?
Well, think about it. Well.
It's not the theory that the Earth isn't a sphere. It is the theory that there's nothing.
No, think about
It's
it.
completely level. It's a single line. That's the theory, right?
If the Earth was flat, there would be no tectonic plates. There would be no mantle, no core. We would have no volcanoes. We would have no uplift. We would have no subduction zones and earthquakes. It would be literally flat. It'd be all covered in water too.
Why? You see, I don't understand how you're jumping to these conclusions. Why wouldn't there be tectonic plates?
Because tectonic plates come from.
They require a sphere, right? It's mandatory that a sphere be there for tectonic plates to exist.
How else do you have a?
Technically, tectonic plates are essentially on an ocean, floating on an ocean of lava.
Yes,
okay?
which could happen on a theoretical flat planet.
Yeah, how could such an ocean of lava fit on a flat planet? What would it circle? What would it?
What would be holding it in?
Yeah,
a giant pot.
So you're assuming water would just just ooze out the sides, right? There's nothing.
God has the entire Earth in a
because right now the oceans of lava are surrounded by land, which keeps it from going out. Right? So you're saying that in a flat planet, the ground couldn't keep the lava in, and the lava would just pour out the ends, and then it would just.
I'm not a flat earther, all right.
Yeah, if you think about it, yeah, kind of would work that way.
Why would it work that way?
What would keep the lava in?
What keeps the lava in right now? The same thing.
Gravity.
Gravity doesn't keep the lava in.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It's what holds the planet together. It's why the planet is a sphere.
Which then that doesn't explain why they're all volcanoes, because that's against.
Because convection.
Okay. So lava goes around right now.
Humane. I actually know the explanation. It's insanely hot in the Earth's core.
Okay.
It's a lot cooler on top. Heat rises.
Well, mostly it's just due to
and that would completely fundamentally change if it was a flat planet as opposed to a spherical planet.
It would. It kind of would.
I don't really know exactly because I'm not alright how that would change if the planet was flat. It's kind of weird. I mean, kind of a weird.
So if you look at the actual what the flat earthers propose as a explanation of the planet Earth is a disc-shaped planet. And then the outer wall is a wall of sheer ice, and that would keep everything in and keep from oozing out the sides like what you're proposing.
But then the flat Earth would sink into a pool of water because lava would melt the water and rock is heavier than water. We would just sink.
Why would the lava melt the ice and not just harden into lava, pumice and stuff like that? Because that's what lava does right now when it's exposed to temperatures that are much cooler than what it is. It hardens into rock. So you would have lava and rock, and in between the ice and the lava, so you'd have lava, rock, ice. That's.
I'm loving it.
Seems like a possible explanation. It's not legitimate, but it is plausible.
No, it's not even possible.
So the fact that you say it's impossible and wouldn't be the case if simply by taking the round and splitting it out like that, that completely destroys the existence of the entire planet. That's your.
I mean, the Earth would look
it's impossible to have a wall of ice around a planet. It's impossible. I mean, because that's just stupid, right?
It is stupid. It is impossible. It's
impossible to have. Okay, all right.
It's getting.
Well, Ham said it's impossible to have, so it must be impossible. So
it's physically impossible
to have ice, a wall of ice, which is we have Antarctica. It's a wall of ice on the southern hemisphere of the planet.
Yeah, but it's not surrounding the entire planet.
No, it doesn't have to surround the entire planet. There are entire planets that are encased in ice.
Then it's not a wall.
The Earth used to be encased in ice 600 million years
ago. But no, according to Ham, that's impossible. So.
You don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Anyway,
you're not explaining it in a good way if you are saying something that is legitimate. Because you're just dismissing it, saying,
you're trying to
if you had the Earth
and
you spread it out and you put ice around the side, that's impossible to do. It's not even theoretically plausible. Okay.
No, I said it's physically impossible, as in it violates the laws of physics.
Why would it violate the laws of physics?
Okay.
Let's take the planet as it is, as a spherical shape. You take out a section.
The laws of physics as we know it could not function.
Okay. The Earth as we know it, the sphere. We take a small section on the top of that sphere. We couldn't make a ring of ice around the outside of that sphere, and then put lava on the inside of it, and then put land on top. That would not be possible.
I don't even know what you're even saying anymore. Anywho,
no. According to you, that's physically impossible to do.
I have to get ready for work, so I'll see y'all later. Have a good night. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Whatever. All right. I guess. So I don't know.
I'm just saying you guys are dismissing things without even investigating them. You have to. I'm looking into the things, and I'm like, okay, these are the explanation for this. Doesn't seem rational. Doesn't seem plausible, but at least it's interesting to study. And then you guys are like, oh, no, that's all... Like, you're completely dismissing rational arguments that are valid because it is possible to have a planet that is flat with a ring of ice around it that it's theoretically plausible.
As far as we know, objects above a certain size then
would
naturally compress into the most efficient shape, which is a sphere.
No, that's what they claimed. That's what they claim it's a sphere, but it's not a sphere. It's... according to, it's an oblong, it's more pear-shaped, right? That's what Neil deGrasse Tyson says. The Earth is pear-shaped. It's not a sphere, it's pear-shaped.
Not a perfect sphere, but it is roughly a sphere.
And yet, all the other heavenly bodies are spheres.
Correct.
They're not imperfect spheres, right? They're just spheres.
No, they're all imperfect as well.
Yeah.
Okay. A perfect sphere is highly unlikely.
But that would be the ideal shape of a planet, given gravity.
Correct.
So, I mean, I understand the topography would be a little off, but the actual shape of the planet should be spherical. When the topography could be different, yes. Because that's not going to be affected by gravity, but the entire shape of the planet should be affected by gravity, which I'm not understanding the pear-like shape. That seems... where it's bigger on the bottom than it is on the top. Like that.
But that variation is very slight. Roughly, by rough estimates, it is a sphere. Okay. Yeah. All right. It's not just because it's not 100% perfect, because nothing in reality is 100% perfect.
Well, according to their
Perfect.
explanations, it's not even close to perfect because otherwise you wouldn't say it's pear shaped. You would just say it's sphere, but it's.
It's not pear shaped. Okay, the Earth is not pear shaped. Okay, all right. It is a sphere. All right. It's closer shaped to an orange than a pear.
Okay, then it seems odd that someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson would say it is pear shaped and then
He's probably
back
making
that
some
up.
kind of analogy. I'm not sure.
He's saying the Earth is bigger on the bottom than it is on the top. The southern hemisphere is larger than the top than the northern hemisphere.
Slight. The variation is slight. He probably was just using an extreme example to illustrate his point.
If the variation was slight, it wouldn't. I mean, it shouldn't be like noticeable or worth mentioning, right?
Yes, it is worth mentioning because it is there. Even if it's slight, it's there.
So, but if gravity was working the way that they claim it works, then that bottom portion would be moving up towards the top. Because of centrifugal force, that's what's pulling everything in, right? So there's gravity and then there's centrifugal force. Both of those combined together would make the Earth gradually over time become more spherical. So then that bigger bottom would be moving up to the top.
Possibly.
Or it may be that the top would be pulling into the bottom because the bottom would have more mass.
I mean, the Earth tilts back and forth every year, for millions of years.
But that shouldn't affect the shape of the Earth.
It has the gravitational pull of the moon, the gravitational pull of the sun acting on it. All right, all those things kind of probably distort upon it.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that doesn't quite make sense. So this is something that I haven't heard a good explanation of. Is why does the moon only affect our water to cause waves?
It doesn't only affect our water, but
it's just only visible with the water. I mean, you shouldn't that be affecting
the water? But
it
actually,
should also affect like wind currents and trees and.
Correct. It does.
Okay. It's just not noticeable?
It's just not as noticeable. The tides are just the most noticeable effect of the moon's gravity.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
All right. So, this is the effeminate degenerate here, aka Lapis, was providing links that I've shared with you guys in the Hangout chat. She's mentioned that there is no good argument in her opinion for flat Earth theory. Would you like to elaborate on that?
That's fine. I mean, I'm not arguing in favor of
for flat Earth theory.
This is the effeminate degenerate here. All right, I hear reverb or something. I have no idea. Humane, you've said it's either or for creationism, and I ain't gonna lie, that was a real shit show and a half back when Ham was on there. But
I don't think it's conclusive one way or the other. I'm just asking questions.
Over here.
Huh?
I'm kind of getting talked over here. I can.
I hear reverb.
Because he asked me a question, didn't he?
So I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, let's see what I can do.
I ain't gonna lie, that was a real shit show and a half back.
You're getting reverb.
Can you hear me now, or what? What is it?
We're hearing S-Man on your.
How about now? Oh, I can hear myself now. For some reason, it's a bit off sync. Oh, okay. How about now? Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Because the video was playing in the background, I'm guessing.
Yeah, kind of messing up. Sorry, everyone.
It's all cool.
I've done it before.
Yeah, so I don't really think there's much water to flat Earth theory.
Okay, yeah.
We've never observed anything like it in space. We've never observed any object that could maintain it's almost perfect. Well, in flat Earth theory, it's more of a dip. We've never seen any object in space that large.
Well,
in order for flat Earth theory to be plausible, you have to ignore a lot of things. No. In order for flat Earth theory to be possible or plausible, you have to ignore a lot of things about space. It would have to, so in order for it to work, the Earth has to be unique. Right? Yeah. So that's a count against it. There's a whole lot of assumptions that go into it. So the laws of gravity have to work fundamentally different from what we understand of the laws of gravity.
Yes.
Because if you're a flat sphere, you can't be pulling towards the center of that sphere, because then the further you move away from the center, the stronger the force of gravity would be on you. So instead, gravity would have to be evenly dispersed across the entire plane. That's a count against flat Earth theory.
Flat earthers are often telemus in their conception of the universe. They think the Earth is the center of the universe.
Yes, that is part of what flat Earth. So the flat Earth, in order for that to be plausible, the entire explanation of the sun orbiting around the Earth has to be backwards, and it has to be the sun orbiting the Earth at a much closer distance. It's also the sun making rotations in kind of like a spiral pattern around the surface of the planet. Yeah. It also fundamentally changed our understanding of light in order for this to be plausible, because the sun has to be shining light on only a certain area of the Earth, and everything it's not shining light on has to be dark. And so then when it does its spiral pattern, it's illuminating areas in which creates the night and day. The other thing that they also have to consider is, so another thing that they assert is that the moon doesn't get light from the sun. The moon has its own light, it's just a dimmer light, and it's a different kind of light. So all of these things would have to be true for that theory to be correct. Which, that's why it's not a valid theory. There's so many different things that have to be fundamentally different from what we understand in science.
So what was your disagreement with the other people who are saying, oh no, this is a stupid theory, let's dismiss it? What was your...
Well, because he said just the very fact of a flat planet would be impossible by its very... even to think about. I'm like, no, because that's what they thought the Earth was flat until about 500 years ago. So by saying, oh, that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard of, it's kind of like, wait, then you're saying everybody from 500 years ago was so fucking moronic, they couldn't think, oh, well, duh, if the Earth was flat, it would have just oozed out the side. That's
true.
Well, the thing is, people back then didn't have access
that
to
needs to be
level of
corrected. That's not true, what he just said. All right?
Okay.
500 years ago, all right, the medieval aristocracy knew the Earth was a sphere. All right, they knew, the ancient Greeks knew the Earth was a sphere 2,500 years ago.
2,500? Okay, so maybe I'm thinking... No, that's 500 years ago. Sorry, I got my dates off. 500 years ago was the Earth orbiting around the sun. Sorry. Yeah, it was a couple thousand years ago, right? 2 to 3,000. Sorry. So it was about, so it's 2.5 to 3,000, right? That's the range. Mm-hmm. But that's still about 5,000 years of human history where apparently they were so stupid and so scientifically unlearned, they didn't think, oh, yeah, the Earth should be a sphere because it's impossible for it to... Because Ham makes these like, oh, that's so impossible and so ludicrous to even consider. And I'm like, but I guess it's kind of hard to say if that was billions of people, right? Well, 5,000 years of human history, is that billions of people?
Well, more like 150,000 years of history, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but...
Well, I mean, yeah...
Well, okay, sorry, everything prior to that. So, I'm saying recorded human history is... That's about 5,000 years.
Makes sense, recorded human history.
Because, I mean, we can't really tell what the people knew prior to that. But we can look at recorded human history and we're like, okay, these guys seem to be pretty smart. They have rational explanations for all of this. Oh, well, these guys were fucking retarded. How could they not think that the Earth was round? I mean, it's so obvious. That's what Ham's explanation is like. Oh, it's so fucking obvious. Even if it was tried to be flat, there's so many complications. It wouldn't even be. I'm like, no. If that was the case, then these people would have immediately jumped to the spherical conclusion. It took them several thousand years.
Their perspective on the world around them was limited. They barely. I mean, they lived and died within like 10 miles of where they were born. They had no, all right. They just saw the Earth looks flat from my vantage, therefore it must be flat. There was nothing else really into it.
Yeah, it's just.
And keep in mind that people, 5,000 years ago, most of them didn't know how to read. Reading was an ability reserved for a kind of a priestly scribe class. So they wouldn't have had access to these groundbreaking scientific theories and the means to experiment, because they would have been, either enslaved or fighting off in someone's wars or just scratching out the Earth to make ends meet.
But there are still significant scientific advances in that same time period, and if they're making these scientific advances, you would think, since those are the foundations of why we say, spherical Earth now, you'd be like, oh, well, they should have arrived at this conclusion a lot sooner than when they did arrive at it.
I don't necessarily know if that's true because the people who like really started to focus in on science, I'd say, would be the Greeks. You could
Yeah.
make the argument the Chinese were more advanced in
That-
terms of their technological
Technological, yeah.
innovation.
No, I wouldn't
But-
say so much. So they're more of the engineering and not so much the
Yes.
science. Yeah, I mean, technically the two overlap significantly, but you don't have to understand the exact principles behind something to know it works. And I think that's where the Chinese had more of the okay, these things work, and they didn't really put too much investigation into why they work. It was more of a
Well,
practical
science
application
was very
of science.
tied into religion with the Chinese.
Yeah.
Their kind of conception of the universe was all around their idea of the Huang Ti, or the Son of Heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all tied around their idea of being the center of the universe, between north, south, east, and west.
Yeah, so that might be the case as to why most people didn't even consider that the Earth might be sphere, because the Earth is the center of the universe, and okay, well then it must be must be flat, and the sun must orbit around the Earth. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah,
and it's the same thing with the sun. The Earth rotating around the sun, as opposed to vice versa, because it's a very comforting thought to think that you're the center of the universe, and a very disturbing one to find out that you're just one aspect in a much greater puzzle.
That our planet is just one of a trillion planets in the galaxy, and our galaxy is just one of 100 billion.
And eventually this line of thinking leads to nihilism, which okay, I am prepared to accept, okay, we're not the center of the universe, and we're not even the center of our own solar system, but the fact that we are not unique in the universe, that seems a little like, wait a minute, you're telling me we're probably not the only life form, and that we are an eventuality? That's where I'm kind of like, okay, something doesn't quite add up here.
Seems that way. I mean, if only one out of every billion planets in the galaxy has intelligent life on it, that would mean that there's 1,000 other extraterrestrial civilizations in our galaxy. And
See, there's a problem with your assumption. You're assuming that there is intelligent life on planet Earth. I'm starting to think that that's not the case.
I don't know. I mean...
right? Never mind.
I don't know. I do pity, because all our YouTube videos are all broadcast into space, okay? And I'm really nervous, okay, that when the first Onision or No Bullshit videos reach the first interstellar...
that absolute idiot.
Yes, I'm concerned that when his videos reach an alien civilization, they're going to destroy the Earth.
Yes. They will drone strike the planet. They'll say, nope, not going to deal with this guy. But
yes.
It's going to be absolute hell,
Yeah. Although if they're more benevolent, hopefully they'll be able to target his house specifically.
Yes.
That would be great.
Although I feel bad for the thing that would hit his house. You have to feel bad for that. It has to touch his house.
Gross.
Yes. That's why I feel bad for the doctors that had to deliver that guy. Well, anyway,
but they told his mother, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Oh God.
I wonder if his mother was an alcoholic.
Oh,
she had to have been. I mean, I saw the dude's face, and
Unfortunately, she saved the heavy drinking till the 4th trimester.
Oh.
I'm so going to hell for that. If there is a hell, Humane, you know what? You can scold me while I'm heading there.
Well, actually, so this is part of what I wanted to talk about, more of religion stuff, and then he got all caught up in the creationism versus evolution. I'm like, I don't really know one way or the other. I think they're both plausible explanations. So I haven't heard a convincing case one way or the other, which is so I'm just kind of like, I'm just asking questions, because some things that you're describing don't make sense to me. Maybe that's because I'm stupid.
The only way you're going to get an answer from Ham is if... Because, I was originally going to heavily moderate this whole thing, but then I didn't want to turn into Dave Rubin with this shit.
Guys.
Yeah. So...
That song.
So back to a more talking about religion specifically, so this is something that because I've been in Bible studies, once a week for the past couple of weeks, and what we're covering right now is what happens when you die. That seems to be a pretty big subject, and according to the Bible studies that I'm attending right now, when you're looking through the Bible, hell, not really hell. And what people talk about hell is like, oh yeah, it's an eternal torment. The Bible doesn't mention that ever. At least not the King James Version Bible. Maybe other versions of the Bible do. But the standard, the American Standard Bible, the King James Version Bible, what's the other one? There's a different version translated. I forget the name of it at the moment. It's where they went back to the original Greek and Hebrew and translated it more directly into modern English. That also doesn't contain any mention of a fiery hell or eternal punishment. And the New World Translation, which is the Jehovah's Witness Version Bible, doesn't mention that. So
you'd say it's a common misconception? Like, that
yes.
It's just a fiery...
It's a very, very common misconception, and this is something... So, I mean, this is my King James Version Bible from 1994. So,
God, that Bible's older than me.
Yeah.
Wow.
And here's one of the things that they pointed out to me.
Here's what happens when you die. It's just like before you were born.
Okay, but no, I'm saying this is talking about specifically the idea of hell, right? Let me see if I can. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So this is Revelations 20 and 13. We'll just start with 14. So Revelations 20:14.
No, go ahead.
So Revelations 20:14, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. Wait, why would you? If hell is a fiery inferno of eternal torment, why is it then being cast into a lake of fire? That's stupid, right?
Okay.
And how can you cast death, an inanimate or a non-tangible thing, into a fiery lake? It's a metaphor saying both these things will be destroyed. That's the only logical explanation. I mean, granted, you have to assume that the Bible is logical in order to reach that explanation, right? And people like Loudmouth don't think that the Bible is logical at all, and maybe we'll get into that. But according to, if you're taking the scriptures as the Bible actually has them laid out, now as the King James Version, the eternal torment doesn't make sense because you're taking the intangible death, throwing that into a lake of fire, and you're taking what is supposedly a physical place, hell, and throwing that into an eternal fire. When it's like, wait, it's already on fire. Why? It's like, hey, I got this match and I'm going to throw it into the fire. Ha ha ha, that'll show them. You're already burning. Even more burning. That doesn't make any sense. The other thing is, the Bible doesn't mention the soul or the spirit being eternal. That's nowhere mentioned in the King James Version Bible. So, the idea of an eternal torment in the fires of hell can't happen if humans are not eternal. If humans die in fire, which, yes, we die in fire, and there's no part of us that continues outside of the fire, you're talking about a punishment that is either instantaneously, well, when you're talking about a lake of fire, that would be a matter of seconds, then you don't exist anymore. If that was the case.
Okay.
It's like saying, oh, you just threw that piece of paper into the bonfire, how dare you, it's going to burn forever. And you're like, no, it's immediately burnt up. Like,
it burns pretty quickly. I've seen it myself.
So, according to the King James Version Bible, I was doing all kinds of searches online and stuff over the past couple of days, trying to find, like, wait, where's the idea of hell as an eternal fiery torment? Where does that come from? Because it's not in the King James Version Bible.
The Bible. I've seen a lot of criticisms of the Bible, and among people my age, and their favorite verse they cite it as if they read the entire thing themselves is Leviticus 20:13. That's something I commonly hear from people around my age.
20:13. Yeah, let me look that up because that's.
They never they just say the Bible. They don't specify, but it's basically if a man lies with another man as he would lie with a woman.
Okay, yeah. That's like, oh, that means the Bible's not true. It's immoral, and I'm like, well,
Well, they say it's like the Bible has no authority on what's moral, if that's what they are taught. Yeah, if it believes that.
Well, the idea that they're presupposing is that homosexuality is a net good, which I don't think it is, because if you think about the net good, so going back, so if evolution is the process of adaptation and improving life, or at least that's what we talked about earlier, then the gays are not doing their part to better mankind.
What if
right?
a gay person adopted a child?
Still would not be participating in the process of evolution, because had they actually bred and had their own biological child, that biological child could have that mutation that advances the species to some...
Hold on. But if in a species that is dramatically overpopulated, as our species is, I would say that people are doing far better for the good of the human genome by not having kids.
That's presupposing the idea that you can overpopulate. And we've had this discussion, yeah.
I do take a bit of an exception to that, considering about 90% of the Earth's resources are used by those of the top 10% of the income. The Earth would not really be in
That's not the case. That's 90% of what we own is owned by the top 10%, not 90% of the Earth's resources. There are still large areas of land that are not being actively mined, or there are lots of resources that are not tapped.
Lots of species are being.
I said emission outputs. The 90% of carbon emissions are coming from energy.
Oh, emissions.
Top 10%. Yes.
But the point is,
that's buying into the global warming theory, right? The carbon emissions are killing us all.
Why are our species being driven to extinction? All right, primarily because there's too many people crowding out their habitats.
And there's environmental destructions.
Okay,
like
so why would those species need to continue to exist? That I'm a little confused by that.
I think the world's better off with rhinoceroses, tigers, elephants.
Why? If they die off, then they weren't adapted to their environment, right? That's just natural. That's just natural selection.
Remove the predator from a chain, and these species are not being allowed to develop off naturally.
That's presupposing that naturally is better than what we're doing.
By human activities, being forced upon them.
But why would natural be better than artificial?
You'd also have to take into account with deforestation, it can harm their ability to.
But no. What I'm saying is, why does it matter that they have their environment?
Because one would be a natural product of a process.
So what you're implying is that the natural.
Instead of interrupting me, so I can get my point across. I don't mean to snap at you. I understand the fallacy you're trying to point out. But if you let me finish my explanation, I'll be able to resolve your complaint.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. So the issue is if you allow it to progress naturally, extinction will take tens of thousands of years, and so it will not necessarily create the same devastating impact that you would see if a predator like a gray wolf was rapidly hunted to extinction. That would not allow the other organisms to respond to the decline of the species. Because of the rapidity of the artificial decline, unnatural results are produced.
But that presupposes that the natural results are superior to the unnatural ones.
Depends
to me, there should be indifferent. So whether a species is artificially extinct, or whether it's naturally extinct, or whether it's not extinct at all, they're all equal. There should be no preference one way or the other.
Nature has no preference, but I think we should have preference.
Well, why should we?
Because if you cause so many extinctions at a certain period of time, it's very, very bad for the ecosystem as a whole. So,
very bad for the creatures in those ecosystems, not necessarily for us.
Yes, because we are a creature in this ecosystem.
So the rhinos going extinct, or maybe certain species of wolf going extinct, ultimately hurts us. That doesn't.
Yes, Because
I think the animal's existence has intrinsic value. I personally feel less fulfilled living in a world.
Well, yeah,
without
I
the
understand.
privacy.
I get that point of view. That is actually my own perspective, but I don't know why you have that perspective. Why would an animal matter? Why is an animal or a species being kept alive better to it? Just hey, it was going to die off anyway. It doesn't matter one way. And a living organism should have the same value as a non-living organism.
No, it's kind of nihilism that you're espousing.
I would say a baby has the same value as a stone.
Why not?
Because one can go on to experience emotions, experience life, and contribute to the betterment of society, whereas a stone is neutral, has no expression of any kind, and it's just a material.
So, betterment of society, we'll get back to that, but that is kind of its own subjective perspective. The other thing is, why is experiencing emotions and all of those, and basically living, superior to not living? That is kind of.
Well, I'm
is this an inherent concept, or I mean, what? Where does that come from?
With such high depression, I often think a lot of the time wishing I had been a stone or never been born.
Oh, so yeah. There's always those sorts of thoughts that I think almost everyone on Earth has had that thought one time or another. But ultimately, we'll never be able to experience non-living. And
yeah, we will. We'll all eventually experience.
But no, we'll all get to non-living. Will we experience?
Yes, because we are non-living, we won't be able to experience non-living in a weird sense.
Yeah, it's these presumptions that we kind of operate on. We operate on the presumption that life has value. We operate on the presumption that certain aspects are better for us than other things. Those are kind of either inherent in us, or we just don't consider them. Right? It's kind of like, I never thought about, wait a minute, so why is it better for society to have more people alive than less people alive? Because like what Loudmouth was talking about, with if we're overpopulating, then why is it still immoral to kill people? Shouldn't we be like, oh, wait, it's good for the entire population if we just kill, 2-3 billion people? Because in which case, communism, hey, you're doing a good thing by lowering the population and preventing overpopulation. That's to me.
Trigger me. It's not going to work.
Oh
don't
God.
Don't at me.
I don't know what you.
She's a socialist.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, okay. Well, we have too many conversations about socialism. I'm trying to keep this about religion because I think that this particular subject ties into religion, which I think this is the fundamental purpose of religion, is figuring out why life is important as opposed to non-life. Why it is better for life to continue and for there to be more abundance of life. Why should that be preferred to less life or a stagnation of life? Why should life by itself be a positive good, and why shouldn't an abundance of life be a positive good? I think I haven't quite found a good explanation of that without a religious foundation.
You don't see happiness as a good in and of itself?
Why should it be? How is happiness better than nothing? That's saying being alive and being happy and content or whatever is superior to being dead and in the ground. Well, we don't know. Have we ever been dead and in the ground? We don't have something to compare that to. And yet either like an internal or kind of just this kind of inherent knowledge, I guess, that no, we want to avoid death as much as possible.
We can sort of see the result of non-life when we observe those who are in a catatonic state, and just the kind of feeling of profound misery it gives me when I look at someone who's in a coma. Coma.
Yeah. So we either inherently so it's either something we inherently, or maybe it could possibly be learned behavior that we're like, oh, we don't want to be dead. because that's a bad thing.
It's inherent. Every organism has to have survival instincts if it's to survive and pass on its genes.
But that's implying that passing on your genes is ultimately better than not passing on your genes.
Well, it contributes to the advancement of the species.
But
We
that's
still
the
have
same.
the mindset of 10,000 years ago when it
No.
wasn't necessary for everyone to contribute there. The
Well-
problem is we still got that mindset, even though in today's world it's not the case anymore.
Well,
Evolution
you've
is a slow process.
you've just argued against continuing life. You're saying that whether you continue life or you don't continue life, they're on equal terms, which means, right?
For me, it feels that way, but yeah, I guess. But
Well, I mean, that's what I think you ultimately get to when you don't have something that says, okay, definitively life is better than non-life, and definitively an abundance of life is better than a stagnation or a reduction of life.
But why is religion necessary to have faith in
Oh,
life?
because I haven't found another viable explanation onto why that's a good thing. People just assert that life is better than non-life, and I'm like, that it doesn't.
I can't
considering-
get laid when I'm dead. How about that?
Well, that. Okay,
Okay,
that's so that is
Maybe
a.
I could, but I wouldn't want to.
That is a personal interest. Like, personally, I would like to stay alive so that way I can continue having sex, right? But that doesn't provide a driving motivator for all life. That may work for you on an individual level, but that doesn't work for
Actually,
an
it kinda
entire
does for
species.
all life. It is
Well, it
kinda
expands your options, right?
Expand your option. I'm confused. What
terms
do you mean
of-
by expand your? So you're not having sex. You're talking about living. Expand your options.
No, I'm saying that by having more people around, it expands your partners in terms of sex buddies.
Yes, but it also creates the problem like what humane. What Loudmouth was talking about. What Loudmouth was talking about with overpopulation, right? So I guess it's a balancing act between, well, do I want to have more people around to interact with, increase my options, or do I want to, to reduce the population to keep from overusing resources?
Yeah, but like humans are not at overpopulation point. We have more than enough. We generate more than enough food to fill
weren't
over
you just-
10 billion people.
Yeah, weren't you just arguing in favor of overpopulation? Okay, so I got to start this off. So I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here, bouncing back and forth. So, overpopulation, complete myth. Carbon emissions and global warming and any climate change and all that is all BS. And
No, you can have one.
so I think so. These are the things that I actually believe. I'm stating these. So these are the things I actually believe. I actually believe that carbon emissions and global warming and all of that is BS. I actually think that we can't reach overpopulation. And what was the other thing that kind of relates to this? And I actually think that there is a purpose that makes life superior to non-life. So I may argue against these things in order to prove points and all that sort of thing. But so those are my positions.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I forget what we were talking about before. I had to jump in there because I was like, man, there's a reason why I had to illustrate those three. Oh, because you were arguing about saying that we were overpopulated because 90%.
That we're overpopulated. I'm arguing that we're not overpopulated. We have more than enough food. We have enough food to feed, over 10 billion people. The problem is the distribution of those resources.
But earlier you were saying something like 10% of the population uses 90% of the global emissions or something along those lines.
That's what she means by the distribution of the resources.
What?
So your complaint wasn't that there was a lot of pollution. Your complaint was that it's concentrated pollution.
Hold on. Do you think the Earth could sustain 100 trillion people?
It would depend on agricultural advances. It could. I don't think the Earth, not being supplied by other colonies, probably could sustain that. But agriculture has improved so much in the past 200 years, and I think it's a bit close-minded to assume that it couldn't improve in the future.
So the other thing is, you're assuming that somebody having a child, it's naturally everybody's prerogative to care for that child and make sure that child gets resources. Because if we grew to the size of 99, what is it? So wait, no, hang on. Let me see if I can get this. 99,999,999,999,999 people on the planet, and one more was added. Ah, crap. Now we have to find resources for this one more. If it got to that point where we were at, like, not, that's the most the world can handle, and if we have one more, everything's going to break. That one more would come into existence, we wouldn't have any resources for them, and that one more would die, and then we would probably punish the 2 people for bringing that one more into the world, just to watch it die. Then
we'll have 3 less people alive at that point.
Yes.
Or we could take a pittance from everyone else and redistribute it to keep that one person alive.
That's because we're already assuming that everything is equally distributed between that one less than a trillion, or one less than 100 trillion. We're assuming that it's already equally distributed because that's the maximum population.
At the barest point, and this one person will just result in, a long, over-drawn-out death for that person.
Yeah.
I'd say
misery.
That is what the idea of overpopulation is okay, there's a certain point at population where that's the most we can hold, and if we go over that, that's when everything starts to fall apart. So what you would see is going over that, whatever is over that, you would start to see dying off until we reach that equilibrium point.
Yeah, I would think of overpopulation more in the context of a population that is large enough that it begins to hurt the means of producing its own food. Say there were so many humans that it necessitated cutting down all the world's trees, and that caused all sorts of problems, and that caused a huge number of collapse in human population.
Yeah, you create problems when you say all of the world's trees and things along those lines.
Right.
It was just an example.
And I get you. Yeah.
The Rocky Mountain locust, all right, and the
Yes.
fact that having vast numbers of locusts, okay, ultimately led to the species' demise because it devastated its environment through its overpopulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I think we're the Rocky Mountain locust at this point. We're basically extremely fit and reproducing at an unsustainable rate until we devastate our environment and then our population suddenly collapses.
Yeah, but so the big difference between us and locusts is we can grow our own food. We can provide for ourselves. We farm. We domesticate animals for our purposes.
But
the locusts wouldn't have that ability to do that.
Running out. The food requires land to grow, and when we do that, we push other creatures to extinction, and those extinctions collapse the ecosystem. Because you eliminate top predators, and then prey below them, for example, will suddenly grow in population, to their own unsustainable levels. The ecosystem is very delicately balanced.
But what humans can do is create self-contained ecosystems that are sustainable, which is essentially what a farm is trying to do to the best of its ability, right?
Yeah.
You're growing your own crops. Your crops feed your animals, and then you eat from your crops and from your animals, and then your animals produce more animals, and it just keeps going. It's trying to be as self-contained as possible. That's the idea of the farm life or the settler life and that sort of thing. It's not just relying on it's or I guess farmsteading to be in general is everything within that is self-sustaining. So in which case, then if you did something that was detrimental to the outside environment, outside of your controlled zone, doesn't quite matter because you can always go back to your comfort controlled zone. Right? Your farmstead or whatever, because that is self-sustaining and that's going to be there even if everything around it is completely destroyed. Now, if we get to the point where we blot out the sun or it's nothing but acid rain, so you can't even grow crops and all that sort of thing, humans are kind of adaptive, so we would find some kind of solutions like, okay, well now we're growing farms inside of a greenhouse, so now we no longer have to worry about using grow lamps, so we no longer have to worry about the sun issue, we no longer have to worry about the acid rain issue. We're just, we just have to replace these glass panes every so.
If conditions were there, humanity would go extinct very quickly.
Yeah, large portions of humanity.
If those conditions were there, there would be not enough time.
Yeah, large portions of humanity. No.
If there was a full-scale nuclear war between the United States and Russia, where to just launch all their bombs at each other,
nuclear famine.
Within a few decades, there would not be a single human being on the planet.
No, that's not going to be the case. There are underground bunkers. So
Yeah,
unless,
we'd have a nuclear famine.
so we could have a
We'd probably
nuclear
have- yeah.
famine, but there are still underground bunkers where
Yeah.
people have set up greenhouses
And
underground.
that will sustain people for a few decades, and that's it.
That doesn't make sense because you can have all the same things
nuclear
underground and it
winter.
contain. So
People
we're talking
people
about below
will
the
turn on
surface.
each other eventually.
We're below the surface. We're talking about grow lamps because that does work, and greenhouses, so you've got your vegetation that could sustain a population.
You'd also
Depending
need
on
to
the size of it.
manufacture vitamin D supplements.
Yeah, and we'd have a nuclear
Mm.
winter that would last a while, along with that nuclear famine and that type of thing. Fortunately, though, only twice has there ever been use of nuclear weapons, at least that I
Yeah.
can remember off the top of my head.
No, it's only twice.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
If
I
it
don't
dropped a
think.
bomb,
I think yes, those types of things would be catastrophic. I don't think it would eliminate the population of humans the same way that the locusts were wiped out, because I think humans are way more adaptable and way more resourceful than what you're kind of giving us credit for. We can live in, like, there's people living in Antarctica right now. Are you saying that those people would also die out in a nuclear fallout, even though they're
Those
in
people
Antarctica?
living in Antarctica, they often rely on supplies given to them from the mainland, though.
Also, I'm not sure if they live in Antarctica year round or if they're just.
Yeah, they're just scientists who go there.
There are year-round facilities. I don't know if the same people stay there year-round, but there are facilities. I mean,
that are
we've got,
open year round. Yeah.
yeah, there are facilities that are open year-round and they're supplied year-round. So, well, there's the other thing is, okay, so there's an International Space Station. People have stayed up there for years. I'm just saying,
Not a lifetime.
if I understand it's not a lifetime, if they have enough time within an environment like that, you're saying that they could not come up with some kind of solution that would allow them to sustain beyond that environment. That's just not the human spirit. That's just not all of human history kind of defies that. It's like we've always found a way to overcome
When the chips are
and
down,
adapt.
when people are put in a dangerous situation,
Careful there.
humans tend to turn on each other.
You all right there, Loudmouth?
They tend to become savages.
So you're kind of expressing rather Hobbesian view of human nature here.
Me or Loudmouth?
Loudmouth.
Are you all right, by the way? Because you sound like you dropped something there.
I did.
Yeah. Well, so those types of people wouldn't be the types of people that are in this underground bunker trying to survive and live and thrive, because the second somebody lashes out and goes crazy, yeah, that person is taken out. Because the only people who could live in such an ecosystem are those who are actually going to participate and help keep that alive and going. And if you start to be one of the people that is sabotaging it or, going around going crazy, yeah, you're not. Bye. That's the solution. It's very unlikely that any of this would happen and that we'd be down to a handful of people in an underground bunker. It's not likely, but push come to shove, I think mankind would survive something like that. And yes, we'd have to start all over, we'd have to rebuild everything, but I think it is plausible.
Yeah, I guess you could do what they did in Doctor Strangelove, right? We must have 10. We must have 10 women per man. Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh, have you seen the deleted scenes from that?
They're like, these women will be selected for their sexual characteristics. I like his plan.
I saw the movie in film class. Only the first 30 minutes. It was pretty damn fun.
No, that is a classic movie.
That was a masterpiece. Doctor Strangelove is a masterpiece of dark comedy.
I wish they had kept the food fight scene in it, though. I watched it with the food fight scene. I'm like, oh, I don't know why, but it makes the movie so much more enjoyable just because it's so absurd and over the top, and you're like, yes, it's just, yeah.
Best line is when he says, "You can't fight in here. This is a war room."
Yeah. All right, so let's try to get back to religion more specifically, because I'm trying to do like a couple series talking about religion specifically. So
you want to spread the good news.
I don't know what the good news is. Like I said, I'm studying Bible studies. I'm researching different religions. I don't know. They could all be bogus. What?
So have you read the Quran?
I have read the Quran.
Have you read the Torah?
I'm reading the Quran.
Yeah.
Hello,
I
sir.
haven't. I've semi-read the Torah because the Torah is part of the Bible, and I've read those parts that are with the Bible, but there's other books that are part of the Torah that are not. So I haven't covered those yet, but that is on my list of things to do. So sorry.
Yeah,
So
no worries. But yeah, I don't know, like, about Islam, to be honest. I mean, not a fan of Christianity, just want to point out, but Islam I'm definitely not a fan of, just saying.
yeah, the Quran kind of does the exact opposite of what the Bible does. It's like the Bible in reverse. It starts off with kind of like Beatitudes and like all of these good things and like, okay, yeah, this is better, this is a good way to live, this is helpful for society.
00067.
Is that you, Brandon?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, and then it gets to the point where it's like, okay, now it's starting to get a little harsher. It's starting to get a little, okay, now it's full on war mode and killing and talking about advocating, going out and wiping out your enemies and making them your. Whereas the Bible is kind of the opposite, where it starts off pretty primitive, and you can see this gradual increase up and up until the end, where it's kind of like, okay, this is like where Jesus is saying, love the Lord your God and love thy neighbor as thyself. That's where it kind of, I mean, granted, there's more books to the Bible, but it's all about admonitions and like, okay, yeah, you failed, but be a better person, do better in this, and hey, stop fighting amongst yourselves over these petty things that don't matter. Okay, those guys are definitely doing the exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing, so don't follow those guys. It's kind of more casual towards the end, whereas the Quran is a little bit casual at the beginning and a little more authoritarian warmonger at the end.
Well, to be fair,
but that same Bible.
Revelations.
Oh, hang on a second. What?
The Bible
Yeah,
has
but
the book of Revelation.
Sorry.
Yes. So Revelations talks about a war to end all wars, right? It's not necessarily World War I, but it talks about like a final battle, and after that, all the bad stuff goes away. There's no more death. There's no more famine. There's no more pestilence. There's no more diseases. There's nothing to worry about.
It also says that Jesus would have when he comes back, would have a tattoo on his thigh that reads King of Kings, Lord of Lords.
On his thigh?
On his thigh.
Do you happen to know which verse that is?
Not off the top of my head, but it is in Revelation.
Well, I'm getting that tattoo.
Okay.
King of Kings, Lord of Lords.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's gonna be my tattoo on my thigh then.
Yeah,
Besides
we
that.
should do that. We should all get a tattoo on our thigh that says King of Kings, Lord of Lords.
Oh, I'm not gonna get
Yeah,
any
but,
tattoos.
If I get a tattoo,
Okay,
it's gonna
but-
be a
Okay,
flag.
Revelations 19:16, you say?
Yeah, but HUMANE, that same Bible, God doomed all of humanity because if he was all-knowing and all-powerful, why did he let Adam and Eve eat from the tree of knowledge?
Because he's an asshole, basically.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's your perspective of it. So it is a parent, an asshole, who says, "Oh, hey, by the way, there's a sharp knife on the table. Don't touch that kid." And the kid goes and stabs himself with a sharp knife, and like, "Well, I told you not to touch it, right?" Okay, that parent's a fucking
Yeah, but he's
asshole
gonna
because
doom
there's
yeah, but he's gonna do millions of lives, to go to
well,
Lake
it's
of Fire just
no,
because
no,
of
no.
that.
Okay,
I think that's
no,
kind
no.
of a-
So we discussed the Lake of Fire, but point out where that is in the Bible, because if it's there, I haven't found it, and
You mean the fiery hell?
sorry, the Lake of Fire exists as it's where everything goes to be eradicated. It doesn't exist anymore once it's gone to the Lake of Fire. That's the idea of that. Sorry. Point out where people are thrown into an eternal fiery torment. That's not in the Bible. Or at least not in the King James Version Bible or in most of the commonly recognized Bible. It might be in a specific sect of religion, because there's a bunch of different versions, like 105 or something like that. Different translations of the Bible. Maybe it's in one of those other ones, but it's not King James Version. It's not the American Standard. It's not in the. I gotta remember the name of that one.
Yeah, but if God's gonna punish, millions, like through generations just because of that, I think it's a really,
Well,
shit thing to do.
you're also implying that God created death and God created the punishment system, which I don't know if that's the case or not. So
But
your assumption. So
the Lord
God
God
create
made them all.
everything?
That's that song.
No.
Are you from that Monty Python song? It's a
Look on the
parody
bright side of life.
all things bright and beautiful. Goes the original hymn goes, all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and tall, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. The Monty Python did a parody of that. All things dull and ugly, all creatures short and squat, all things rude and nasty, the Lord God made the lot. All right, all things sick and cancerous, all evil, great and small,
well,
all things foul and dangerous, the Lord God made them all.
That is actually contradictory. Yeah, that actually is contradictory to what the Bible claims about God. So if we're going off of the Bible and we're using that as an explanation of the God of the Bible, that isn't the case.
Actually, it is, though. It says the Lord God created everything. All of them, even Satan, is a created being.
Exactly.
Okay. It says that he created Satan, yes. It says that he created the earth. It doesn't say that he created all of the bad things in it. It doesn't say...
all the creatures of it, all the wasps, the squid, the sea urchins.
Not necessarily.
If an animal murders a human, was that
that's
the
so that's God's fault. Okay, so this is the
but go ahead.
Because the Bible says that God is good. So every good thing that there is comes from God. It doesn't say that every bad thing also comes from God. It says that God is incompatible with evil. What you're saying is that God is the source of good and evil, which is not what the Bible is saying about God.
Yes, it does. In the Bible, God is the source of good and evil.
It does not say that God is the source of evil.
Yes, it does.
No, evil is the natural state.
The Lord brings evil upon
cite me, yeah. Cite me. What scripture is that? Verse.
I don't know it off the top of my head, HUMANe. I don't have a memory.
Give me a minute. I can send it to you. Give me a sec. I just gotta.
Because this is part of the stuff that I need to know. If this is what the Bible is saying, and I'm not aware of these things. So there is the case where God says, "Okay, I'm no longer protecting you from these things." Does that the same thing as him actually putting them out there? Because as far as I know, the Bible says he will not tempt you with evil because he is not capable of evil. That's so.
Yes, he is.
Hey, Loudmouth.
He's done evil acts.
Well, he condemned a tribe to genocide.
I read your comment.
Okay. So is condemning a murderer evil?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So somebody goes out and kill. Okay, this what's her face that just went out and shot up the YouTube or whatever. No, if she was put on trial, it would be immoral for us to kill them. That would be evil of us.
It would be.
I'm in favor of
we are good and evil
so
creatures.
fuck your standard of morality then. So somebody rapes a 12-year-old girl and then it's immoral for us to punish them for their crime. That's what you're claiming about morality?
Well, if they were not in control of
their actions. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If they were not in control of their actions, I don't think that would matter. Like if I go out and I kill somebody, I should still die.
So you're saying if you're not in control of your actions, so you're assuming that we are all predestined, right? That's your view of mankind is everything we do is predetermined. We have no control over our actions.
I was thinking more of as some people have fits where in their sleep they perform actions.
Okay, so
kind of like a more aggressive
so the kid that okay, fine, we'll use an actual example. So the kid that shot up Parkland, right? Parkland shooter. Yeah. We caught him. He's in jail, right? We shouldn't put him in jail because don't mention his name. We shouldn't put him in jail because that's an evil thing to do. Hey, we're locking somebody up. That's evil.
No.
But that's what you were saying about God when he punishes somebody who did something evil.
Yeah, but he's punishing others who didn't do nothing to him.
There's a big difference between imprisonment and condemning someone to death.
Condemning someone to death, depending on what they did, I think it can be justifiable. If you kill somebody, you deserve to be condemned to death.
Yeah.
On the principle that a punishment fits the crime, though.
On the punishment, yes, punishment fits the crime.
But it was in the Bible's case, everyone's character flaws would entirely be God's fault because He created us with these flaws. There's even a joke I remember the Brick Testament did, where God's like, geez, why is he so arrogant? Oh yeah, I made him that way. But I still blame him.
Well, that's a straw man of what the Bible actually teaches, then. Unless you've got some kind of scripture that supports your case.
It's just the fear and love, though. You know, why should we fear and love, you know?
Okay,
Oh,
so
talking
if
about
you
how-
understand that God is everything that is good, that is what the Bible says. The Bible says God is the source of all life and the source of everything that is good. Never mentions him being the source of everything that is bad. It doesn't matter what you think. It matters based on what it says. You got to judge it by what it says. That's what we're trying to do. You can say, yeah, you can believe in a spaghetti monster and use a spaghetti monster to disprove the Bible. That doesn't... But how the fuck does that help anybody? We're talking about comparing this book to itself, not your opinion of this book. You can't contradict this book by saying, "Oh, well, God is evil and the source of all evil." Like, well, is that what the book says?
God, I mean, the Bible has all that evil stuff that he's done in it, you know.
Well, that's because you're saying it is evil, which... All right.
It is.
Let me bring up...
People would agree with me on that.
Okay, let me bring up an analogy, all right? Somebody created a game called The Sims, right? I go into The Sims,
Yes.
I start killing Sim characters, right? Oh, fuck, I need to go to jail because I killed somebody. Well, the rules inside The Sims, if a Sim kills another Sim, they go to jail. So I should be held accountable to the same rules as something inside that video game.
Well, those are pics.
Hey, well, we are fucking... If there is a creator who snapped his fingers and created everything in existence, we are nothing more than pixels to that entity. What makes us so special and significant where he can't just snap his fingers again and destroy everything, snap his fingers, create a new reality that's completely different?
Oh, well, that's it. Oh, well, that's the end then. But
According to you, that makes God immoral. That doesn't make any sense. We might as well be pixels. We might as well be zeros and ones to a creator who can speak things into existence, can speak an entire universe into existence.
Technically,
yes.
That's what we are.
So then you cannot condemn him in saying that he's immoral for doing anything he does.
Yeah,
he could be evil and manipulative, do everything to ruin your life, and it's not evil because you're just a fucking plaything. How could you apply your system of morality to somebody that exists outside of your system of morality?
Okay, if someone went up and shot your whole family forcefully in front of you,
Are
then...
we back now?
Yeah, you're back. Sorry, we didn't drop out. It was just you. Okay, yeah, that would suck, but how does that make God immoral?
Dude, oh my god.
That, by your definition, that makes God evil, but God doesn't play by our rules. But according to... Why should he? God could be absolutely evil and absolutely malevolent. Yeah. That's not the description of God in the Bible. This is all hypothetical if God was real, right? You're jumping all over the place. Right?
I'm not trying to, S-Man. What do you think of all this, dude?
So, if the God of the Bible is as it's described in the Bible, then he wouldn't do those sorts of things. But, according to you, if a God spoke the universe into existence and then treated it like his plaything, that would make that God evil. That doesn't make any sense logically.
Why not?
Because he spoke it into existence. That's like...
Okay. So if I
would
give birth to a child, and I treat that child terribly, I abuse it, that makes me an evil person, even though I brought it into existence.
No, because you don't control the rules. You didn't create anything. You gave birth. There's a big difference. You were playing within the rules of the...
When you stuck your dick into that woman and conceived that child, you created that child.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is the way to go about it.
My dad created me.
Different type of creation.
When he stuck,
how many types are there? I guess.
My mom. Okay, he created me. Okay, that's how it works.
So God had to stick his dick inside Mother Earth in order to create. That's the.
No, because he's not real.
A lot of fun.
Because he's not real.
Okay, so God isn't real, so fuck religion. All right. So God isn't real. Why are we having a 4-part discussion about religion in the first place? There's no religion that's real, so let's just ignore all of it because this is not ham this time. Sorry, who are you
Because
exactly?
science is the truth.
No.
Oh
Fuck it. Religion is pointless.
Science.
Hey,
Science is
shut the
actually-
fuck up. I'm
Oh,
agreeing
God.
with you.
Science
Shut the
is
fuck up.
proven.
I'm agreeing with you. Shut the fuck up. I'm agreeing with you. Science is the
Obviously.
only truth. Everything else is ridiculous bullshit. We shouldn't talk about any of it. All right. Thank you for saving us an hour and a half of time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You just
Well, I love
Yeah.
you too.
No. Fuck it. What the fuck are you talking about? Why are you interrupting me when I'm agreeing with him? I'm saying there's no point in religion. All right. This
I love
entire
you.
conversation is pointless. Right? Because your way is correct, so my way can't be. Right? What I'm talking about right now cannot possibly be
what
true.
I believe, you know.
I don't care what.
most likely because
No. No. Your way is right. Anybody else who says different is a fucking idiot.
Oh my god.
No, that's
don't
what
think
other
people are
options do I have
idiots.
right now, right? Because anytime I mention God, you say, "Oh no, but God isn't real. But God isn't real. But God isn't real. But God isn't real." Are you fucking sure that you are correct?
That.
How the fuck can you absolutely fucking know? Do you know everything that is in existence? Do you know every fucking bit of information that you can know? Then how the fuck can you know if God is real or not? That is, you are talking from knowledge that you cannot possibly fucking have.
I'm saying
There's a
specifically the
difference
Christian.
between-
Hey, fuck, I don't know your name, but, science isn't real. Science is, this conversation, I just win. I win. Science isn't real. I win. That's what you're fucking doing right now. You're not providing a valid argument. You're not providing a valid... Hey, alright, your science is a lie. Right? There. Look, there. That's the extent of our fucking conversation. I'm just gonna say science is a lie anytime you try to present anything. Science is a lie.
thrown arguments
Science is a lie.
your way as
Science is a
well.
lie. Science is a lie. Hey, look, I win. I'm winning the argument, guys. I'm winning. I'm just saying science is a lie.
No, I gave
Hey,
you arguments.
no. Hey, I don't care what you say because science is a lie. I'm just gonna. Anytime you try to present a rational argument, I'm just gonna say science is a lie. Because isn't that what you're fucking doing to me when I'm saying, hey,
No,
if God
that's
is
not
real...
What I'm doing to you.
That is what you're doing when you're saying, but God isn't real. That's exactly what you're doing when you're saying, but God isn't real. I don't know if God is real. I don't know.
down.
I'm saying
No one
if
can
God was
absolutely
real,
know for sure if
this
God
would
is
be how it worked. Let's talk about if. Then what are the logical conclusions? Is this consistent?
I'm saying
Hey, but God isn't real.
specifically
Hey,
the
science is a
Christian
lie.
God. Oh my
Science is a lie.
I'm saying specifically the Christian God. I'm not
Hey,
talking
no, I don't
about-
fucking care. Science is a lie.
All right, so
All right,
I
let's
haven't done that
okay.
to you.
Try to convince me of science. I'm just gonna. Anytime you
I've
say
always done-
anything, anytime you bring up an argument, I'm just gonna say, but science is a lie.
all right, so yeah, that was the stream, everyone. I
That's the
gotta go.
stream because there's no
Yeah.
fucking point in arguing when you won't even have a rational discussion. And anytime someone tries to,
I'm
you just
having
say
a
science is a
rational
lie.
Say
discussion.
God isn't real once.
So
All right, so I'm sorry, I couldn't catch what you were saying. What were you saying, Lapis?
I haven't said God isn't real once. I've just been trying to present critiques of the way God, if
Which
he is as the Christians describe him, how his morality works. And I was trying to bring up a biblical discussion, but then as soon as I'd found the quote I wanted to talk about, we started to get this kind of rant on this angered and confused rant about the saying science isn't real, science isn't real, science isn't real.
All right, go ahead.
I'm using argumentum ad lap. Oh, sorry, not argumentum. Argumentum ad. Oh shit! What's
Hilera?
this? Is no. The exaggeration. But oh, man, I'm drawing a blank on this. Holy fuck.
What would it be?
Ad
used
absurdum.
for?
Yes, argument ad absurdum. This is his argument is as absurd as me continually saying, but science isn't real. But science isn't real, as if that is a valid argument in this context. That is why I keep saying this. I'm trying to hammer the point home. What you are doing right now, sorry, you're not Ham, but you're some other fucking idiot who thinks you know better than, and you're just like, oh, but every time he says something, I'm just going to say, science, God isn't real. But God isn't real, but God isn't real, so there's no point in arguing any of the rest of this, right? There's no point in talking about the New Testament or the Old Testament or what the Bible says about a God or contemplating any type of God because God isn't real. So this entire point of this entire conversation, this entire debate, this entire discussion is pointless.
Okay,
There's no
listen here.
reason
I've
to
always
talk
held
about
on.
any of it if God isn't real. No, you said it 3 fucking times, man.
Okay.
So there's no point in any of this if you automatically know that God isn't real. If you say God isn't real, so then there's no point in talking about any of the ramifications of God being real. I'm saying if God is real and God spoke the universe into existence, You shouldn't be able to apply the morality of that universe to that God. It doesn't make any sense to apply morality to a entity that invented morality. That's like saying...
Well,
No, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, you go.
Well, you wanted to mention some. Oh shit! No,
Yeah,
sorry, I meant to
and
keep
I
that
get-
off. But yeah, you meant to mention Lapis some scripture
Yeah,
you wanted
okay.
to bring up. You go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, there's no point in doing that if God isn't real. So...
Well, just you two have that conversation. I muted Brandon.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry. Continue. I won't interrupt this time.
Okay. So what I wanted to bring up was chapter 7 of Deuteronomy called Driving Out the Nations. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess and drives out before you many nations, the Hittites, Gigashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations larger and stronger than you. And when the Lord your God has delivered them over to you, and you have defeated them, then you must destroy them totally. Make no treaty with them, and show them no mercy. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your children away from following me to serve other gods, and the Lord's anger will burn against you and will quickly destroy you. This is what you are to do to them. Break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, cut down their Asherah poles, and burn their idols in the fire. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the people on earth to be his people, his treasured possession. To me, that sounds like a command to genocide.
Yes. And so your argument, I'm assuming, is that God is evil for commanding genocide.
My argument is that the God, if he was, as you describe him, if he was a, kind of, this kind of supreme being who was supposed to be supremely good and kind, then he would never have commanded a genocide.
Well, if what the Bible actually says about those populations being absolute evil, then eradicating evil would be exactly what a benevolent and ultimately good person would do.
But there's no such thing. There's no people on earth that's completely evil.
How do you know that?
How do I know that? Because, I suppose I guess I could rephrase my question. It would be so unlikely that it would be almost statistically impossible for every single individual in a society to be evil.
That doesn't make any sense, because it's more likely that people are evil than that people are good. In fact, it's very rare that people are good.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
No.
Because the entirety of human history kind of supports that. Like, you're in modern times, sure, there's a lot more good people than evil people, but up until last couple of centuries, it has been mostly warmongers, mostly, totalitarian dictators, lots of people in poverty, in abject poverty, just being, ordered around, lots of slavery, a lot of people were just a part of an evil system with no way of escaping. There have been a lot more evil people in history than good people, just considering how much that was the norm of society. The norm of society was to take what you want by strength.
I don't think you understand then history. There's always been reformers who've advocated for the abolition of slavery.
Yes.
There's always been people.
And those reformers are the ones writing the majority of history, because those are the ones who ultimately end up survive, which is how we got to a society where we are. But that they were a minority within a majority. It is only until recently that it switched the other way, and now I'm starting to see it's going the other way around, because it used to be a lot more good people than bad people, but the amount of evil people in the world seems to be increasing to the point where they may overpower and take back all of our systems.
To a certain extent, though, I think that it's so rare that you have someone who's completely and absolutely 100% rotten. Even Hitler cared for his dog. Even Hitler cared for his
So
Eva Braun.
So Hitler cared for his wife and his dog. Therefore, he shouldn't get the shouldn't be despised as evil.
Oh, he should be despised for his vile crimes.
So
but
I'm
at the same time, he's not a completely evil person. And that's actually much more interesting, I think, to have a conversation about the ways anyone can be susceptible of being so completely terrible when the violence is away from them. Hitler probably didn't watch most of the people he ordered killed. He probably didn't delight in that sort of thing. In fact, from what we hear from the historical record, he distanced himself from it.
Yes.
And that's the amazing thing about systems, how they can turn, people who do have so much good in them into monsters.
I don't think there was any good in Hitler. I think it was I think anybody could become Hitler, but I think at the point where Hitler was doing what he was doing, there's no doubt in my mind that he knew he was being an evil prick. He just, at that point, either he'd been corrupted by the power, or that had always been his desire to begin with. You don't get to that point where you're killing millions of people without knowing what you're doing. If by the very act of declaring war, he knew that millions of people were going to die because of his actions.
Would you say that anyone who declares war is evil?
Yes. That declaring war as starting it, yes. Finishing it, no.
Okay.
I think that declaring war, it has to be the very, very, very last resort. So, like, if you're declaring war in self-defense, then I wouldn't say you're evil. But if you're just declaring war just to declare war, that's evil.
If you're declaring war in self-defense, that means somebody has already waged war against you.
Hitler saw himself as declaring war in self-defense of the Aryan race against a horde of communists and degenerates degenerate liberals who were in thrall to the Jews. He saw himself as kind of a savior.
He saw himself as the savior, but okay. Actually, this kind of contradicts my previous point, wasn't it? Because I was saying he knew that he was being evil, but it's not being evil if you're eradicating evil, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
I know what she's talking about.
Yeah, that may be the case where Hitler thought he was the good guy and ultimately did evil things. So I don't think that excuses him from doing evil things. Yeah, but he may not have thought he was evil.
It's amazing how many people in history have done the worst, the most terrible things, thinking they were being so selfless and so good and so kind to others.
Okay. So Hitler may not have realized he was evil, but he was evil.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the closest you can get to being evil without being kind of mentally ill. Yeah.
Well, I think he was mentally ill, but
he probably was as well. He was also a drug addict.
Because at some point you gotta realize, wait a minute, something in this doesn't jive, right? This is we're talking about. But the Aryan race is superior. Oh, but we keep losing. Well, we're still superior. We're just at some point you got to be like, okay, maybe my fundamental idea of the world was incorrect. Otherwise, the outcome would be different than what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah. Otherwise, you would be losing so badly to the Jewish nations. The decadent Western democracies, as you call them.
Okay.
Brandon, did you have a theory that Hitler could have won World War II in a certain circumstance, or am I misquoting you?
No, I've said that before.
You wanted to debate.
It's possible. I mean, yes, it is possible because of the amount of troops he had that were allied to him.
Had he not turned on Russia,
YouTuber Doctor.
Yeah, had he not turned on Russia, he probably would have had a better chance.
Because as soon as he turned on Russia, he was now fighting a war on two fronts, right? Two fronts. So not only had the U.S. started, and involved themselves in the war, so that was a new enemy that he was now fighting. He's like, oh well, one new enemy is not enough. I also got to take an ally and flip them into an enemy, which is that's a pretty huge turnaround. The other thing is he lost so many fucking troops in the Russian winter. They were just like he turned on Russia and did almost just fucking nothing. It was like hitting a brick wall as soon as he tried to get in there because they just
got level. Well, he thousands of miles, but Russia
But-
could give up thousands of miles and still have thousands of miles more left.
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
He got very, very little actually into Russia, considering how big it is. So that was just a failure overall. Had he not had to worry about Russia, and had Russia been continuing on his side,
Who knows?
could have been a different
Fortunately,
completely
it
different outcome.
At least they didn't win. You know.
Yeah, I'm just glad for the fact they didn't win, and it's
Exactly,
interesting
yeah.
to see if FDR would have lived to when. I wonder how he. I don't know if he would have handled Japan the same way Truman did with the dropping the 2 bombs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know.
Okay,
That's a
so-
question. If they were to win, how would they treat Japan? Would they be completely destroyed at the end, or would
Probably,
they
because
still
they're not
be
Aryan.
there?
Right? The Nazis
yeah,
were all
but-
about the Aryan superiority, and so they were like, okay, now that we won, time to deal with those other non-Aryans, get them out of play, take away their power. I mean, they might not have completely performed a genocide, but maybe they would have just completely dominated Japan and made them like some kind of slave class or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the issue of religion. So the reason we started talking about Hitler, and that is a very interesting point, because if Hitler thought he was a good guy, because we're talking about pure evil, right? That was the issue. Reason we brought up Hitler was the idea of pure evil or irredeemable, right?
You also mentioned in a prior stream about whether or not Hitler was a Christian. There was talk about atheists and atheists
He was an atheist.
being persecuted in Nazi Germany. I think there was a few articles about atheists being persecuted under Nazi Germany, and
there's also
other groups that were not mentioned that were persecuted under Nazi Germany.
Oh, it's the Joes.
Sorry.
Joseman? The infamous Joseman?
Yeah, I'm infamous because I'm a piece of shit. Honestly.
Don't think of yourself like that. And actually, we gotta talk to Loudmouth because he's kind of been talking a little depressing lately. I'm like, man, this is kind of bumming us out, man. We gotta do something to cheer him up.
But we're gonna off air hang.
You can send him a copy of your King James Bible.
That'll cheer him up. No.
Well, burning it will.
Oh, burning it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, he's not gonna get the one that I've got. I got from my mom or whatever. That's kind
I have
of
the Book of Mormon I can burn
sort of
for
thing.
him.
Oh yeah, burn the thing. That is absolute trash. I gave them way more time than I should have because I was like,
I use it as a coaster if that makes you feel better.
Yeah. It's like, well, maybe there's something I'm missing here, and then when they're like, oh yeah, just reject your rational thought and just accept this blindly, and I'm like, nope. Well,
it's so obviously.
Like, I think Coltan was getting to me, to be honest. I'm not trying to be mean towards him. Like, every single time I was trying to talk, he was like, no. Like, I feel like
pissed off, HUMANE.
Oh, no.
It pissed me off.
Ham and apparently now you pissed me off. Not Jossaman. Not Jossaman.
I did make
0-0 here. Because you're shutting down the conversation, man. You're completely saying there's no point to the argument. That's
that's not. I must have like misworded it, like what I was trying to say, but I didn't mean it like that. That's what I was trying to tell you.
No, I think you said exactly what you mean. You just didn't think about the ramifications of it.
And besides Brandon, I would know. Me and Jossman know the ramifications of when we had that argument with HUMANE because he went like World War III on Jossman. It was actually pretty damn funny looking back, but like I never imagined HUMANE would have.
I mean,
that's my exact reaction every time somebody makes those. It's like, oh, you're just shutting down the discussion. You're shutting it down, saying, "Up, I win."
I wasn't trying to though.
But anyway, anyhow, yeah, I just lost my train of thought right there, so I'm just looking at JJ just loses shit in the chat.
So I'm trying to go back to the topic where we're talking about irredeemable evil, in which case that is what the Bible was saying about those tribes. It was like, yes, get rid of them completely because they will corrupt you. That is, there is nothing redeemable in them, and this has happened several times throughout the Old Testament, where the same case for Noah. You could easily use the case of Noah where God flooded the entire world except for 8 people. And you're like, oh, well, there's no way that the entire human population could be so irredeemable except for those 8 people. But that's exactly what the Bible is saying. It's saying, yeah, they're beyond help. I just got to reset the system, start over again, try again. That's what the story of Noah is talking about. It's like, yes, mankind is so irredeemable, no one will be good. It's absolute evil. I've got to start over. That's the idea behind Noah. Similar situation with Sodom and Gomorrah. While that wasn't an entire genocide of a people, it was an entire city population that was outright destroyed because God said, I've tried, I've given them enough leeway, there's no repentance in them, they will not turn away from their ways, they will never come back to the good. They will always be evil, and they will continue to corrupt the rest of my creation. It's got to be destroyed. So the only people who was saying that were good in that city was Lot and his family. And he said, go away, don't look back, and I'm going to destroy it. So there's several examples when God said, these people are irredeemable and need to be destroyed, otherwise they will continue corrupting the rest of creation. This is the Philistines as well. The Philistine, and if you look in, so this is not part of the King James Version Bible, but this is part of other books that maybe should have been included, like the Book of Jubilee and the Book of Enoch, where it talks about angels coming down to earth and having sex with human women and producing offspring called Nephilim. And these Nephilim were giants of men.
Yes,
and it is theorized that the Philistines and cultures like that were descendants of these Nephilim, which is why they were, what's his face? Goliath was a giant, and a lot of Philistine warriors were giants. Goliath was like, 8 foot something or 9 foot something, had 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Any archaeological evidence for the increased height of the Philistines?
I don't know. I don't know if there's archaeological evidence for that. As far as I know, nothing that seems too crazy. Then again, there's lots of archaeological evidence that we didn't have until recently. Like they used to say that the kingdom of David, right, the one that's described in the Bible, didn't exist, or the kingdom of Solomon.
I don't know anyone who said that because
that was the case when I was growing up. So when I was in grade school, they were talking about, oh yeah, well there's this, so apparently this great Israelite kingdom of David that doesn't exist, and then in the I think it was the late 80s or early 90s where they uncovered it in an archaeological dig, and they're like, okay, this is that structure or that settlement that was talked about in the Bible. So it's very possible that we just haven't found the evidence, but the evidence exists. I don't know. Not everything. Not everything is fossilized. Sure. Not every bone structure is remained. We do find large humanoid structures, and oftentimes they are attributed to some other kind of species. Right? It's not a human species. That's something different because they've got an elongated skull or their proportions are out, and I don't know how they do DNA on them because apparently.
How would a large structure necessarily denote an unhuman species? I mean, there's plenty of large buildings that humans have built that...
Not a large structure as in a house. A large structure as in their skeletal structure. Sorry, I need to clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, larger frame, maybe that doesn't... Yeah, larger skeletons, but they're often say, oh, that's not a human skeleton, that's some other type of species.
When I think of someone who has a large frame, I think of it as a polite way of saying that they're fat.
Okay.
So
what scientists call Neanderthals, I don't know if this is true, but this is plausible, something that has occurred to me, is what they call Neanderthals may have been what they're the same race or species that Philistines and those groups that God was saying we need to eradicate them because they're going to infiltrate they're gonna become a part of you, and you're not gonna get rid of them. And that's why what we were talking about earlier was talking about species. Although there's every human has some kind of Neanderthal related DNA in them. Well, it's very much the case, or at least it's not very much the case, but it's very plausible to think that okay, if what the Bible said or with what these books are saying is that angels came down, had sex with human women, produced illegitimate offspring, those offspring had different DNA. That offspring continued to infiltrate the rest of human DNA, and now what we call Neanderthal DNA may very well be the DNA of those Nephilim-type entities. I don't know. I'm just speculating based on...
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that I am trying to emphasize most of all is I don't know. I'm asking questions, and I'm presenting what I think might be plausible based on these perspectives. I'm trying to argue in favor of the Bible because I'm starting with the position, what if this is the right way? Okay, if this is the right way, is it defensible? Can I make arguments? Can I keep this? Is it defensible? And if it's not defensible, if there's all kinds of things like, wait a minute, I never considered that. Okay, that's a flaw in it. I never considered that. That's a problem that's not rectifiable. Then ultimately that viewpoint will collapse. And I think with enough scrutiny over these discussions, eventually I'll be like, okay, there's been enough evidence, enough arguments poking holes in the idea of the God of the Bible being correct. I have to reject that theory completely and move on to something else. That's what I'm hoping to get to, because that's what I got to with the Mormons of like, okay, there's too many holes in this. It's sinking. There's no way to redeem this. I haven't gotten there yet with the Bible.
Well, I don't know. I believe personally that. Sorry, let Esman speak.
No, it's fine. Continue your thought, Jocelyn.
Actually, yeah, go ahead.
I believe that God put me out of existence because I was being a fallacious. I used to have real anger issues and I would take it out on people and then would put me back when I was actually talked with him. And then, put me back, and that's when I felt safe, and then put back into the world. Now, maybe that's not true. Maybe that's how I perceive. I was on drugs where maybe that's not the case. Yeah, it could have been my own emotional state, but that could have been a way of God talking to me. Of course, there's no evidence for this, but that's how I perceive it.
Okay.
So a few days ago, Jocelyn let us know that he believes in God now. And that to me that's totally fine. I've seen people say they're fine with personal religion, but not organized religion. I guess
I'm kind of in the same boat. So I don't agree with organized religion because I think any type of system is going to be corrupted. It's that whole power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is what organized religion is, a concentration of power.
Yeah, so if you're if you're not part of any specific religion, you just believe in God, then that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I do. I guess I want to be my own person.
That's how my mother is. She believes there's a God, but she's not subscribed to any specific religion. My father, I don't even know. He was raised as a Catholic. My mom was raised as a Mormon, but I think he's just an apatheist at this point. I don't think he actually really I don't think it's something he really cares about. The rest of my family, they're either Catholics or some part of Christianity, other part of Christianity, and I have a few Mormon friends. I call them Momos, and they fortunately don't get pissy at me about it.
Yeah,
no, that's the thing.
I just want to say that I was just feeling emotional. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was about to say that's the thing with the Mormons that doesn't quite click with me because I understand their entire belief system is so it contradicts itself. There's so many problems with it. But they're good people, which that's the part that doesn't quite add up for me.
And couldn't you say that would be true of the Philistines per se? That they could be people like that whose belief systems didn't necessarily click with the Israelites, but who were still good people.
No, it's the difference is the Philistines were a warmongering tribe that all they did they were kind of similar to the Mongols, right? To Genghis Khan. Where all they did was conquer and destroy and imprison other cultures. That's their entire history.
Do we have a book of them from their holy book having a god commanding them to kill 7 other nations and completely eradicate them?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, unless there is some kind of religion of the Philistines that's survived.
They did have a bunch of different religions because they were a polytheistic people.
Okay.
And there's never any inscriptions of them having a god that commands them to kill all the others. However, we do have that description of the Israelites from their own holy book.
I'm not sure what your point is there, unless you're saying that the Philistines didn't deserve to be wiped out, which I don't know. According to what the Bible is saying about them, is they were irredeemable, in which case, if they were irredeemable and they were just going to cause more death and destruction, then it makes perfect sense for someone who wants good and wants the entire world to come back to good and not have any kind of evil or any bad in it. The only way to do that is to eradicate the evil or the source of that evil.
Well, you're kind of treating human beings like a cancer on a body, which I don't think works.
That is the case with... So... the way the Bible describes the creation of Earth is God created the Earth perfect, right? It was, with at least the Garden of Eden was an absolute paradise for mankind. They had everything they could ever want. There was just one rule. They broke that rule, and because of that, okay, well now that's no longer perfect. Now there's sin in the world. Now there's actual corruption in my creation, and I've got to go through and continually try to eradicate that corruption. And that's what the entire Bible is, instances of God saying, okay, this is corruption, all right, get it out and start over again. Okay, no, it's still corrupt. All right, got it. And this
God is all powerful though, so all omnipotent. He could have technically, with the snap of his finger, eradicated the corruption.
Okay, so
could have been couldn't have been human because doesn't it? Oh, sorry. Couldn't it have been human-like in nature? Because it does seem like God in the Bible is not human-like in a sense, but he relates to humans because because it does have a Bible verse about it, doesn't it?
Well, it
has a connection.
Yeah, so the Bible says that we are created in the image of God, and so that it's not God being human; it's humans having characteristics of God. Right. So that's the biblical explanation of it. And as far as the previous point about God being all-powerful, this is something that bothered me a while until I read a book called God's Debris by Scott Adams. So I don't know if you know who Scott Adams is. He's the guy behind the Dilbert comics. He's actually a really smart guy. He successfully predicted a Trump presidency months before anybody was even considering it. Really, really intelligent guy. He has a podcast, I believe. So if you listen to his stuff, really intelligent guy. But he's got this book called God's Debris, which is actually... It's a really good read, even if you don't believe in religion, because Scott Adams is an atheist, as far as I know. He doesn't believe in a religion, but he wrote this book, which is kind of like a fantasy-type thing. I don't know really how to describe it, but he proposes some very interesting philosophical questions. And so it's written from the perspective, it's written from the perspective of a guy who doesn't know, but he's being instructed by somebody who absolutely knows. Someone with a divine connection with God, who is describing everything, who knows the future, can predict all this stuff. But one of the things this all-knowing person says, he proposes a question. It's have you ever heard the question, if God is all-powerful, can he create a rock that he could not lift? So that's it's a paradoxical question, right? The other question, if God is all-knowing, can he create a problem that he cannot solve? That creates a paradox because, talk about omnipotence and omniscience. Mm-hmm. The other thing is it possible that mankind is both the problem that God cannot solve and the rock that God cannot lift?
Yeah, possibly. So, I wouldn't say so. But I don't want to just say that because I want to think for myself.
That would probably be contradicting the Bible, because in the Bible it does say that God has a solution at the appointed time in the book of Revelation.
Yeah, so I understand, because this is written from Scott Adams' perspective, right? But I think that those questions kind of illuminate the issue is, so maybe God has created a challenge for himself, and that challenges the human race. And he's saying, I am all-powerful, I'm all-knowing, can I create a challenge for myself? So in God's Debris, Scott Adams ultimately concludes, well, God wanted a challenge for himself, so what he did is he killed himself. And all of the universe is the remnants of that God trying to come back together. That's the theory. I mean, I'm not spoiling the book or anything. This is something that is, it's in the first chapter where this is mentioned. Okay. So, but taking that same kind of concept is, I don't think God would need to kill himself in order to provide a challenge. But what he would need for a challenge is a creation that can ignore him. A creation that can pretend he doesn't exist. A creation that can defy him. A creation with free will. Free will so powerful that creation can outright ignore and reject everything he does. Because even in the account of the Bible, the devil cannot say that God, or cannot forget about God, because the devil was there at creation. The devil knows what God can and cannot do. And actually, it's not devil, it is Satan, because devil, I think, is not actually a biblical term. Devil describes evil entities, but not the devil. The devil is something that so Satan is the reference in the Bible. But Satan, according to the Bible, knows about the creation of mankind and the creation of the universe and all of this sort of thing, he can rebel, but he can never rebel to the point where he ignores the existence of God. That's not part of his ability or his range of his range in design, I should say. Mankind, on the other hand, has free will so powerful we can outright defy God in every way conceivable. And the challenge then for God is, can he make mankind, or at least enough of mankind, good and turn to him despite the ability to turn away? That, to me, seems like a rational challenge to a being who is like, well, I've created everything else there is to create. I've created galaxies, I've created heavens, and I've created these angel creatures and several different species of angels. Created all of these entities. What else is there? Let's try a creation that can defy me. Ooh, that's interesting. Let's try a creation that can ignore me. Ooh. Again, I'm applying similar, like, human traits to God, but, I mean, we have these we have traits where we try to challenge ourselves, where we try to improve or better ourselves. But if you are God, how would you do the same thing? So,
you're a perfect being, though, if you're God. Obviously,
Okay.
wouldn't you be prone to knowing that you are already perfect? Shouldn't you already have the wisdom?
It could be like a systematic thing where God was created through the universe. I'm sorry, I'm just looking into it. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No. You weren't interrupting. That's
we always welcome your contribution.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like, I think that God was, like, created through the matter system, and like and that. Sorry, I'm trying to articulate it. Where it maybe it didn't have to exist, but like it. But there was a certain order that had to be done, so like it exploded and like made different emotions, and that is God, like, trying to portray it. Because I definitely feel like he does. He's doing calm me down from certain things by color, by schemes. That's why I like specific colors like green, red. I like to keep my room like in a certain way because I feel like that's how he talks. I don't know. I feel like I'm reading
sorry, you ever see a movie called The Mighty Wind? There's a religion dedicated to color. It's just that's just what popped into my head. No, it's pretty funny.
So you believe that God was created out of the matter system. What is the matter system?
Like, I believe that maybe there has to be a reason, but maybe not. Maybe there's a level of just, I don't know, it's confusing. But I believe that God maybe has to be here. Like, maybe it's not true, and maybe it's just bullshit. I don't know.
So you're kind of taking a Voltairean approach where it's if God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually okay. That's a good explanation. So, I think that could be the case, but that isn't a case that corresponds with what's written in the Bible. So, in which your case, when you're saying that God is a perfect being and is infallible or anything like that, while the Bible,
it seems like a contradiction. Yeah, I don't really call myself a Christian.
I was just trying to relate this back to what I was saying about Scott Adams' idea of the humanity as a whole is the challenge that God has made for himself, and you're saying that he shouldn't have to challenge himself because he's a perfect being. But
in a way, yeah, but in a way, no. I don't think that God has. Sorry. I don't think that God has to be perfect. I believe that, like maybe it's in a random system where we are in a simulated way, but like accidentally. I don't know. It's just weird.
So, yeah, as far as I know, from what I've been reading and researching in the Bible, it doesn't mention God being perfect in that way. It mentions God being so much more wise than human understanding. So much more powerful than human, so much, like, the extent of God's power, knowledge, and goodness is mind-blowing. Like, it's so vast that we can't fit it in our heads. That's what the Bible says about it. But that wouldn't necessarily mean that God couldn't be challenging himself to the point where he's like, okay, my power is really, really.
Sorry.
I guess maybe I should better explain it. So, compared to an ant, our strength is infinite.
Yes.
The same kind of concept would be like, okay, compared to us, God's strength would be infinite. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily actually infinite. It's just from our perspective, it's so vast that we have no chance. Like, if we were to arm wrestle God, it's like, really? He wouldn't even notice it. He'd just move his arm around as if it was unencumbered completely. Same way
like
as
your arm.
yeah,
You know,
same way.
like
Same way. If we were arm wrestling with an ant, we wouldn't even notice the ant is attached to our arm. We just move it around and like we don't even notice the extra weight, sort of thing.
But that would be to reject the biblical definition of God, which is a omnipotent, omnipresent being.
Well, it depends on what your perspective of that is, where that's coming from. The omnipotent and omnipowerful is coming from men who are describing him from the inside looking out. Yes, as far as everything,
the Bible is like written by humans. Then
it says divinely. It's written by men, inspired by God. Yes.
Okay. Good.
That's what the Bible explains about its origin.
Okay.
So I'm a computer programmer by trade, and I often relate Bible and the creation to my experiences creating programs, because that seems like a very good analogy in my head. Because when I create a program, I'm completely in control of everything in that program. I dictate all of the rules. I tell everything how to interact with each other. That is entirely my creation, and I can do whatever I want within that environment. That environment has rules set up where pieces of it cannot violate those rules. But it seems very odd, like I'm not creating AI, sadly, I'm not good enough to start creating AI, and I've never had a job where that was part of my requirements, because usually these are fixed systems. But if you were creating an environment, I can see how adding an AI to such an environment, if that AI was bound by these rules, it would probably try to apply rules to me, and I'm like, dude, stupid AI, God mode, boom. It's that's why video games they call it God mode, right? Because you can break the rules of that environment when nothing else can. All the rest of the things in that environment have fixed rules, and you're saying, nope, I'm just going to ignore all of these and do whatever I want.
But there's a danger then to doing that sort of thing. We've seen, leaders that think that they've been all powerful, that they are in fact gods themselves, and that seems to really significantly distort them in how they treat other people.
Yes. Okay, and I'm going to get back to that, but so what I'm talking about in the program, from the entities within that program, as far as they're concerned, I am all powerful. But as far as I'm concerned, there are so many mistakes, so many flaws in my program, and I play them and I'm like, oh, I didn't consider this, and I go back and I reset the program, and I make the change and I reset it, and the program reacts as if that issue was never there in the first place. And this is when I'm thinking about God being all powerful, all knowing, and being able to see the future, right? That's part of the all knowing, and God being kind of a timeless entity. Well, from our perspective, God can snap his fingers, reset everything, say, okay, this didn't work out last time I tried it, change this one little thing, reset, replay, everything plays out exactly the same, except for that one thing is now fixed. And as far as I can tell, like so I'm trying to relate God to something that I understand again. So this is, if I was controlling an entire universe in the same way that God controls the universe, that's how I would do it. I'd be like, okay, put all these pieces in play. Okay, it plays out. Didn't achieve the end I wanted. Reset, start over. Okay, how can I change this to fix it, to make it work? Change whatever doesn't work, replace it with what does work. Hit play again, watch it play out in its entirety. Okay, now I got to a new place. Okay, now I've got a new problem. Okay. Well, I don't want to reset everything I've done up to this point, because then I could get a completely different result. But I do know this is where I want to be right now. Okay, let's change this and reset the system, and that's what, that's, in my mind, that's what's going on. It's like, okay, I'm building up stages of checkpoints, right? So he's like, okay, this didn't work. Okay, I can start over from here, and I can keep going from that, and I don't have to reset the entire system. I don't have to start over completely, but okay, there's these reset points that I can keep falling back to and make subtle changes. Okay, well, this guy didn't work out. Let's try this guy instead. And God can do, if God is as is described in the Bible, he can do that a infinite amount of times, and we wouldn't know. As far as our perspective, everything would have been absolutely perfect from the first time, because we wouldn't remember any of the previous times. We wouldn't know about any of that stuff. We would just see what we're currently experiencing, which might be the final version of the system where everything works correctly.
So you think that we're a trial run?
Yeah.
Yeah, trial run.
I mean, I guess that's my way of rationalizing the Bible, but it doesn't seem so absurd as to be completely like what Ham and what Brandon or whatever kind of like, oh dude, that's completely BS. I'm like, maybe this is not the case. I mean, it's very possible that all of this explanation is bogus and is not needed, and it's just overcomplicating a system in order to try to make it presentable. I don't know if that's the case, but I do think that there is a God. I'm trying to find out which one, and it seems like the God of the Christian Bible keeps producing results that are ultimately along the lines of what I want to see the world turn more into. Because the people who tend to be Christians tend to be like more people that you'd rather be around. Like if I had a choice of being around a devout Christian or being around an atheist, 9 times out of 10 I'm going to choose the Christian guy just because they're more pleasant to be around. Because
I would choose a Christian guy to be around too, not against atheists or anything.
I just choose someone who's more pleasant to be around.
I would always choose
I would choose that too. Not against atheists or anything.
I've met quite a few hateful religious people in my life.
Okay.
I have too.
Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is the majority of the people who actually believe in Christian or some form of religion tend to be those more pleasant people to be around, because they have this like, so there's either two factions. Is one, they don't want to face the consequences of being a bad person because they think that they're going to end up in hell, or they think there's eternal punishment and that sort of thing, and so they're trying to do right by the word of God in order to avoid punishment. Then there's the other people who are like, okay, I generally want to be a good person, and I'm following religion because I think that's how I get to being the best version of myself. I'm following these tenets of religion because this is advice. It's like, okay, even if God is... Oh,
I'm back.
I guess we talked, yeah. So there's a lot of people who follow religion saying, even if God isn't real, if I follow all of the tenets and I follow these commandments and I research and I study this and I live according to this, like, my life is significantly better than had I rejected it. And so those are the types of... And that tends to happen, at least in my personal experience, this is anecdotal, but the Christian people that I've met that have that kind of perspective of, I'm doing this because it makes me a better person, even if it isn't quite true. But the atheist people I've met, with very few exceptions, the vast majority of them tend to be these
pessimistic,
more nihilistic people who aren't trying to make themselves better. They kind of say,
is a pessimistic nihilist, or would
no.
Used to be. I used to be very guilty of that. Thank God I got out of that mindset.
Well, okay.
Well, thank
you,
God.
So yeah. So S-Man, and Loudmouth, and a couple other people are a handful of people that I have met that are atheists who don't fit that mode, right? So I mean, there's a handful of people. And I mean, I like hanging out with S-Man even though we disagree. And
yeah, me too. I like hanging out. I think I overreacted.
But there have been.
Earlier when I just left it's just I was feeling like Cult of Ham was just turning it into a shit show at this point.
It's always going to be with him on, so it's just the daily routine of these type of things. But as you're saying, Humane.
Well, I'm trying to control my temper as well, and as you saw in both times in the stream, I didn't do a very good job of controlling it. That's something I need to work on, and something
you gotta let it out, Humane. I learned that. I learned that eventually.
I'm trying
gotta
to.
be very
That's
humane.
I gotta specify. The name Humane Mind is not what I am. That is my goal. I'm trying to be that. That is so. I'm trying to emphasize the intelligence with the compassion, and that's what I want to be. Is that person that people like? Okay, that guy's intelligent. He thinks things through logically and rationally, and he's also compassionate, and he's trying to reach people where they are to get them to think more logically and more rationally.
So is it more?
Yeah, I think you
to
have
be
done that
logical
for
and
me.
rational, or to be seen as logical and rational?
Oh no, not to be no. In order to be seen as logical and rational, you have to actually be it. You have to 100%.
I don't think that's true.
Practice what you preach.
I
Sargon
think
the
that
Conqueror, for example, is seen as a very intelligent person by many people, but I find him to be a blithering idiot.
Sometimes he can be a blithering idiot.
Okay, so it's the case of you can fool some of the people some of the times, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So in order for people to see me as a truly rational and logical and compassionate individual who is trying to get people to be better versions of themselves, in order to have that be the case where people see me as that, I have to be that. So
yes,
that's what I
can see that.
Because
I can agree with that
I plan on doing this for a long time.
Well, hopefully.
And yeah, I mean, hopefully for a long time. Well, unless YouTube kicks everybody off and does the, commits suicide itself and not just its employees, or
Oh, that's so fucking.
is that too soon?
It is true. That's what makes it funny.
That's why you don't demonetize our videos. Damn it.
Well, I mean, that's part of why I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go make my own platform, and I hopefully that platform
I'd
will.
sign
Don't
up for it.
demonetize anybody. Don't
Yeah.
demonetize anyone.
No, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's built in where I can't demonetize somebody. That's the.
Oh, because
that's
if you
the,
could demonetize, yeah.
Yeah, the
'Cause you would
entire
be sitting
purpose. So the idea is, okay, when I'm running it, things could go great, but as soon as I'm not in control anymore, what happens to the system? I can't.
Yep.
I can't verify. So I built my system with the idea of, okay, if somebody else was running this and they were actively trying to demonetize people and to silence people, they can't. That's what I think I've achieved that with my system. I don't know 100%. I'm still testing it.
You'll be
and all
saving
that.
lives. You'll be saving
I think you'll be
lives
saving
by
So,
doing
people
that.
emotionally.
I think the way my system is built up and the way it's separated into powers, because there's the two separate sides. There's the financial portion, which is completely independent from the media portion of it. Because of that built in the system, the only way someone could do what they, control it and manipulate it and, take a preference is they'd have to completely dismantle the system and replace it with something else. It wouldn't be the same system. The other thing is, if that happens, then my system goes completely open source. If somebody comes along and changes the fundamental code of it, that there's enough of it out there where someone could open source it and make their own network that has no leader. That's the ultimate goal of my system. Because it's kind of being designed on an open source platform, although I do need to have some control over certain aspects of it in order to make my money back. Right?
course.
Yeah, I'm putting my own financial and I'm putting my own finances on the line here. I've had to sacrifice a lot in the last couple months, a lot more than I anticipated.
Yeah. Make sure you own the means of production.
Hopefully you won't
Yeah.
have to sacrifice everything.
But once I make enough of my money back and I make a substantial profit and I've got a good place, I'm like, okay, now I can take my hands off the wheel and the platform will maintain itself, provided there's
Jesus,
enough
take the
users and all
wheel.
that sort of thing.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, it's entirely built on the rational free market. It's free market
Right.
principles. So
no! You had me with religion, but you're gonna lose me on the free market.
Make sure you own the means of production to the whole thing.
Capitalism.
Well, essentially, so I'm calling it free market principles, but I'm thinking it's more along the lines of something that you would support because the entire system is within the hands of the people who are making it work. So it's a ownership of the means of production from the workers, the people who are making content on the site will own the means of production because they'll own the system.
Humane's a communist. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Capitalism. The owners shouldn't own the means of production. Sorry,
Yeah.
I do a stupid accent.
No,
but yeah.
because Well,
Your
essentially,
right comment, John.
yeah, because
It's
it's
entirely in the hands of the people, no?
yes,
You are a
but
fascist.
yeah,
You are a
the
fascist.
big. But I think it's so I think that is a. So I think that is an area where the free market and socialism are on the same page. I think the difference, the main and a pretty pivotal difference between between Austrian or not Austrian. I'm trying to think of what a good classification. So between anarcho-capitalist, I guess that's the best explanation. Between the anarcho-capitalist view of how things should be run and the socialist view, it's how to incorporate that. I think ultimately the end result is the same. I don't think socialists achieve their end results. I think anarcho-capitalists do. That's
I'd rather live in an ANCAP society than socialist.
That's going to be a completely different discussion. And holy moly, it is already 9 o'clock. This has been going on for almost 4 hours. So
It's almost 10 p.m. where I am at, mate.
Oh, it's
so
almost 12 p.m. where
yeah,
I
this has been a
It's almost
nearly
11
4-hour
p.m.
stream.
Well,
I'd like to thank everybody who came on, including Ham, including Loudmouth, Josh
Thank
O'Man,
you.
Brandon. Thank you for joining us, and I'm sorry for blowing up at you, but that is my the thing that I have to work on the most, and it's because
patience.
It's maybe not patience. It's I guess maybe not taking you at what you say. Because what you were saying was dismissing the entire debate. And I'm like, that's what gets under my skin. I'm like, I present argument, you present counter argument, I present argument, you present counter argument, and we have this back and forth, and then you're just like, no, shut down the whole thing.
It annoys me too. I don't think you meant that, but
that's something I need to work on, is not letting it get under my skin the way it does. So
yep. But yeah, so I guess I'll wrap it up right here.
Yeah. So
thank you for joining me, HUMANE. Thank you for
And-
joining me, Lapis, and thank you, Jocelyn.
Yeah.
All right.
you too.
Yeah, Lapis.
Thanks for letting me back on here.
Thank you
Yeah.
for your
That was,
okay. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, Lapis.
Sorry,
thank you
sorry.
for your insight. You are welcome on the Humane Mind streams as much as you want. Are you part of the Cancer Podcast?
It's not a live stream; it's a mind stream.
Yes. I have her on my Discord, and you're on it too. So
And thank you, HUMANE.
Okay, so I was wondering if I send out the link in the Cancer Podcast or whatever you guys are calling it, throughout the links, if that will get to.
Oh, she's not a member of. I didn't add her
Okay,
to that.
but are you on Twitter
I
or
wouldn't
something
mind
like that?
being added. Yes, I am on Twitter.
Okay.
My handle is degenerate thee.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So thank you to everyone who
If you want to
joined.
allow me back on the.
Oh yeah.
Masters-
I'll add you back in a second, but I'm gonna end it
I-
right here.
I-
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. So thank you to
Degenerate
everyone
V?
who joined. Yeah, like degenerate, then just THE.
No, I just got pissed.
Yeah.
So,
I get you. But yeah, so thank you to everyone who joined throughout the last 4 hours. I still can't like the 6-hour stream I did with Lapis here was insane. Still hilarious though. We looked at so many ANCAP memes. But yeah,
All right.
so thank you to everyone who joined, and as always, as Brandon said in the chat, that HUMANE was triggered like a feminazi. Till next time.
All right,
Okay.
and I gotta end my stream so that way. All right, so I'm stopping my stream.
all right.